beautiful Thursday here in America, but a painful one in the rest of the world. Paper tiger flexing. I mean, that's the United States, right? Like struggling to arm Ukraine and Iran, or Israel's attacks on Iran. How is everybody doing today? Starship. Oh yeah, let's start. Elon Musk testing the his rocket, and of course, happy Juneteenth. Oh, I don't think it's supposed to do that. I don't think it's supposed to do that. Oh, I don't think it's supposed to do that. It's clear you're pretty much got off the H3 train, and good on you, but for oh lordy, North Star Radio dropped a video yesterday and it was a banger. We might have to watch it for fun.
That you have whittled away.
Clearly.
The content nuke was supposed to be your magnum opus. Nearly 2 hours of self-pity, delusion, and projection. A desperate attempt to force the world, and especially Hassan, to finally pay attention. And in a way, it worked. You got the attention you craved, but not the kind that brings validation or victory. You got the kind that brings reckoning. Once the nuke dropped, everything that had been simmering boiled over. Hassan finally responded.
Okay, I mean, gosh, I might have to watch that for. By the way, I'm not off the H3 train. I just want to let everybody know I am on the H3 milking train. If you're a snarker, if you are someone who hates Ethan Klein, and you want me to comment on Ethan Klein, I'm very happy to do so. That being said, he's kind of dying out anyway and becoming less like basically everybody who's not a complete dipshit and parasocially inclined toward Ethan is kind of falling off. He's despised on the internet, and it is what it is. Like, and we're never gonna like let him forget. We're always going to be there forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Are you going to give the second nuke the time of day? I mean, it depends, maybe. Like the reason why he's posting another video attacking Hassan or me or who or Dedums or God knows who is because he is now an orbiter of destiny. Him and his skinned scarecrow wife are now orbiters of destiny. And Dan Saltzman. Like, I don't know what else to say. My favorite thing that happened recently, which I don't know that I commented on. Did I comment on it on stream? Maybe I mentioned offhandedly. Is his wife finally opened up and she felt like she hated the picture of the tattoo. The criticisms are getting to them. It's working. It's working. This is the funny part. This is the absolute best part. Which is I will never be affected by them in any way. It's like impossible for them to bother me. But everything that we say bothers them. And every time we succeed, they get angrier and they get more frustrated. This is the best part of being me. I can literally just survive and be happy, and that feels like an L to them. Whereas they mean absolutely nothing to them. Like, excuse me, they mean absolutely nothing to me. So when they fail, I can laugh at it. But if they're like making videos and just, you know, doing goofs and gaffes, I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, they can't win. They literally cannot win. Like, they're really hoping that America turns fascist just so there's a second Red Scare, just so that Hassan and I get like targeted by the government. Like, that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping for a like making being a socialist illegal. That's where they're at now. That's their politics now. Rooting on Benjamin Netanyahu's war of aggression on Iran, rooting that Donald Trump gets us into a war, and then begging for McCarthyism. That's winning to them now. All right, well, the war between Israel and Iran, you know, the war between Israel and Iran continues with strikes on Tel Aviv. Basically, the Israelis are saying they can't stop the Iranian nuclear program without the assistance of the United States. Basically, they need the United States to make bunker buster, the super heavy bunker buster bombs. They need those strikes on Iran to have a chance of knocking it out. And so that's that. But why talk about them? I kind of think you're not a real fan of mine at this point if you ask that question. I think you're actually not a fan of mine if you ask such a stupid question. Making fun of Ethan Klein is the best strategy for me, and I get to keep talking about politics because it's about Israel, Gaza, and Israel, Iran, which is what I would be talking about anyway. So I just get free algorithmic boosts by also including Ethan in it. It's just W's for me. Do you not see green arrows? Do you not see the shape of this curve? Like, why are you making fun of Ethan Klein? Because it's incredibly helpful for me. Mike, can you consider your pronunciation of Iran? I don't know. I kind of like that I pronounce it differently every time I say it. North Star Radio is Denims, Adam Panada, myself. Everybody who's taken Ethan on and not hid from him has won overwhelmingly. Everybody who's been like, oh, I don't like drama. Oh, drama. Oh, you're hurting me by talking about it is falling off. It is 100% the correct decision to fight back and be unbothered. You can just see it. Like when I started fighting back against Ethan Klein, I had 75,000, followers. Now I have 93 or so. You know what I mean? It's like 93. Like I've gained 20,000 followers on Twitch, which is very hard to gain followers on if you're not part of the big like clout sharing networks. My hours watched is growing at an even faster pace. My average viewership is up, and I haven't streamed more. If anything, I've streamed kind of light. Yes, Mike, we know you do this only for the money. Huh? Bro, I was in politics before you. I have been in politics when I was broke for being in politics. What the fuck are you talking about? I was taking $2,500 a month organizer jobs for years. That's what's so funny about this. It's like people go like, oh, you're just doing this for the money. Was I doing it for the money when I had 200 viewers? Anyway, victory for us. I'm going to continue making fun of Ethan Klein. It's not like he's powerful. It's not like he's damaging. He's a fucking dipshit who's trying to get me deplatformed because I don't like Destiny. Central Committee is obviously a grifter. That's why he's held tightly to convictions that will get you removed from the mainstream media and get shunned from the political. Yeah, I love grifting. I love grifting to the far left. That's where that's really popular to be in America. The far left. That's the grifting place. Like what I so love about people like this guy is he has an avatar from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and they're all leftists. Like even like your identity is just completely co-opted. Like you are nothing without it. Like you can't even, your favorite show is made by left-wingers. You can't even help it. You have nothing. Bro, you can't speak to a woman and hurt your wrist punching a couch. This is my favorite thing because this entire fantasy comes directly from Destiny because he was bitter that I dated an ex of his. And then she changed her entire worldview to align with mine. And so he became obsessed with me. This is what it is. This is the actual answer to this. I'm going to address this. He became obsessed with me because an ex of his dated me back in 2019. And now she is like, she's even more radical on Palestine than me. She's like wearing Hamas headbands and shit. Before that, she was kind of like a problematic person. And so like after me, she completely changed her worldview to become a far leftist. And I was like a 300 viewer Andy. Isn't that fucking funny? So every time you see this, can't speak to a woman, hurt your wrist, this is because I was dating a woman who changed her entire worldview after dating me. And Destiny became obsessed. So he searched clips. He searched for clips where he could take them out of context and like try to make me look embarrassed in the moment or whatever. And that's what that is. So every time you see this, just know Destiny obsession. That's what you're reading. Somebody who got tricked by Destiny. This is who we're wasting our time on. It's literally called decoy chatter. No, it's good to talk about this. It's funny to mention it. We get to laugh at Destiny more. Why are trans people obsessed with kids? Oh, oof, oof, yikes. This is a Destiny fan these days. Ugh. Bro. K Illuminati Scotty or whatever your name is. You know you could just become trans, right? Like, I know you want to be a woman. Just become trans. You don't have to like fixate on everybody who had the courage to do it. You could just become trans. You don't have to fixate on it. I like how DGG guys barely even tried defending Destiny. Yeah, I know. They still hate all of his enemies, but they're too embarrassed to defend him. You, Asman, Nux, Hassad, all trash. You can't even defend who is you like because he's so pathetic. Holy shit. But that actually reminds me, chat. You want to see something really wholesome? Hold on, let me show it to you. I was trying to remember exactly when it happened.
It means the world to me to be on Bernie's side because I know that's the right side of history. He's the guy to do it. He is the man to beat Trump. He is the man to change our whole system.
Hey, chat. Recognize this hat? Right here. Recognize this hat? It means you support democracy now with money. It means that not only are you a leftist in your opinions, you're putting your money where your mouth is.
Hey, thanks so much.
He's been doing this for so long that it's like second nature to him.
Thank you, Rev GG.
He's going to take care of the country, and not only our country. He's got his eye on everybody else in the world, too. This system obviously doesn't work as it is, and we have to change it. We're going to fix ourselves, and then we're going to be an example, the shining example that we should be. The skies are becoming clear, and when the skies clear up, what's standing there is the person who is the one who's been there forever, saying the same thing, fighting for the people, and that is Bernie Sanders. This is one thing we have to understand. We can't expect Bernie to do this alone. We have to be in there with him every step of the way.
I just want to thank Decoy Chatter for making me even happier, reminding myself of Danny DeVito's support, and just the reality that if anybody you admired met you and knew who you really were, they would despise you forever. And you would never, they would be disgusted by you. And they would love me. They would absolutely adore me. But they would hate you. That's how much of a worm you are. Isn't that funny? So thank you for reminding me how awesome the guys over at Always Sunny in Philadelphia are, how wholesome Danny DeVito is, how there are a lot of really good people in the world. And you are a tiny, tiny minority, which is why we all continue to laugh and succeed and grow. Because guess what? People are fundamentally good-hearted and compassionate, and they want their fellow man to thrive. They're not disgusting little exploiters like Destiny, the sex criminal, trying to find teenage girls with mental illnesses he could sexually exploit and abuse and humiliate. You know, that's not the majority of men. That's not the majority of people. They despise people like you. You're nothing. You're slime. I can't believe Danny DeVito hasn't endorsed Zohran. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, maybe he didn't ask, you know? Maybe Zohran should ask. Slime doesn't deserve this slander. So true. We wouldn't have multicellular organisms if it wasn't for slime. Slime play an important role.
Good evening from
in our society. All right, chat. Let us hold on.
Welcome. Another huge aspect. What exactly did they...
Why is everything playing? Okay. Oh, chat, look. This is my algorithm. My algorithm is based politics and Labrador puppies. Damn, I missed it. What was the Always Sunny point being made? Oh, I'll show you because you asked. They're leftists.
It means the world to me to be on Bernie's side because I know that's the right side of history. He's the guy to do it.
They're leftists. That's all I was saying. They have base politics. Help me understand Israel's plan. They knew they would need bunker busters. Okay, hold on. Let me read that again. Mike, help me understand Israel's plan. They knew they would need bunker busters. Why not get the U.S. on board before the first strike? This is incompetence and chaos, or is it a charade to get some public support and sympathy before the U.S. drops the big bombs? The answer is they understand Donald Trump better than you do, unfortunately, which is Donald Trump is a cowardly little bitch, but he likes to be seen as a winner. And so Israel understood that if they launched this covert strike and it saw success, that the United States of America, and specifically Trump, would be drawn into a winner. He would want to be part of the win. And so if Israel seemed like they were gaining public support and successfully attacking Iran, and it was resulting in, you know, limited casualties and limited costs on our side, but it was sufficiently degrading the Iranian nuclear program, they could induce Trump to come in and join in for the necessary strikes at the end. Worst case scenario, they failed, but they still did some damage to Iran. And what? Some Israeli civilians or Israeli soldiers died? I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu hops on a plane and flies out of Israel the moment the counterstrikes are happening. So he's not at personal risk of death. And that's kind of what's happening is can they trick Trump into wanting to be part of their attacks because he wants to look like a winner? That's literally the strategy. And Iran has continued their retaliation over the past few nights. This is some of the stuff that happened last night. You can see interceptors failing to intercept.
הלך סורוקה, בראש שלי אמא שלי הלך סורוקה.
תראו מה קרה בחוץ, אתם לא מאמינים.
אימא'לה, כל הרחוב נשבר, אין יותר, יואו, אתם לא מבינים מה קורה פה.
דנה, תראי מה קרה לבניין שלך, עם צ'יינג', הלך.
הלך כל המקלאווי. יואו, רגע, מה, אימא'לה? עמי תקשיבי, אימא'לה, עמי תקשיבי, לא תקשיבי.
וואו, תראו מה קרה.
So, you know, Iran has continued to strike both in, you know, facilities within Tel Aviv and other sensitive sites throughout Israel. However, the United States, Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, all are joined in an alliance to defend Israel and intercept as many drones and other missiles as they can. The U.S. is deploying the Aegis system. It's deploying the THAAD system. There's Patriot batteries, I believe, in Jordan. So there is a strong effort to defend Israel with all of our power. That's the conditions that we're seeing.
Plan? It's awesome. This isn't gonna do shit. What do you mean this isn't gonna do shit? There needs to be a next step or something. Hey, do you know how hard it is to get toilet paper off of a building, especially if it rains?
That's true.
This Jew's in for a ton of work.
Whoa,
what? Whoa,
come on,
yo.
man. You can't say things like that.
I don't know what I said. What did I say?
You dropped a hard J on
Yes.
us.
Yeah. Jew? You guys said it.
Shh. You can say it, but it has
Jew
to be in the
guy.
right
You
context.
guys said I could say Jew.
You can, but
You
in
said
the
I
right
could call
context,
people in the right
man.
context. Well, what is the right context?
Well,
All right.
this, you know,
Person
of the Jewish faith, right? In a group of other people from the Jewish faith.
Then I
This
said
guy's got a ton of work to do.
I think it's okay that he's Jewish. That is not
Yeah,
what
but
I'm
that's
saying.
not what he's
okay.
like. Okay, hold on a second. This
Okay,
is-
you guys don't know what
if-
the hell you're talking about.
This man is in for a ton of work.
We
He's
know what
Jewish.
we're talking about.
Yeah, we know what we're talking about that.
God, I love Always Sunny, dude. They're so good. You saw that Hassan's tweet about how now Israelis care about hospitals being attacked after 20 months of saying they're valid targets. Here's my opinion. I don't like to see hospitals attacked. I don't. But Israelis complaining as if it's some gigantic war crime when done against them, but they're gleefully cheering it on when it's done to others when they have power. It kind of shows you the necessity of deterrence against Israel. The only strategy that works against Israel is deterrence against Israel. You have to do blow for blow.
אתם לא מאמינים.
אימא'לה, כל הרחוב נשבר, אין יותר, יואו, אתם לא מבינים מה קורה פה. אימא'לה!
Yeah.
הלך סורוקה.
It's terrible. War is terrible. And I hate, this is why we've wanted a ceasefire now. This is why we wanted Palestinians to have self-determination, and why the path of fascism is miserable even to Israelis. And it's only going to get worse. It was a shockwave from a nearby military target. The primary target was the Israeli military C4I Command and Intelligence Base, located in the Yam Technology Park adjacent to Sorka Hospital. The site reportedly hosts thousands of personnel and serves as a key node for Israeli cyber operations, digital command systems, and the broader C4ISR network. IRNA says the hospital was exposed only to the shockwave and did not suffer serious damage. The missile was directed specifically at military infrastructure. I mean, gosh, that sound like, you know, if you believed Israel, I mean, the only thing you can do is believe Iran. Why would they lie? Israel's already rationing the air defense. I mean, I guarantee if you look at the comments, one of the top comments will be about how it's a shame they're still building standing in Israel. And this is the problem, chat. I think that, you know, a lot of people want to talk about its anti-Semitism on the left. And the reason they want to talk about anti-Semitism on the left is because it's not real and it's fake. And there is no anti-Semitism on the left. It's not real. However, what is real on the left is a legitimate political threat to Israel getting unlimited weapons and aid from the United States. The United States of America is paying 70% of the war's costs. We are. Like, think about that. And the only threat to paying those costs is the left. The left is the only. We have much more purchase in the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party base for anti-Israeli support than on the right. On the right, it's just anti-Semites. There are legitimate anti-Semites saying Hitler did nothing wrong. But if you look at the left, there's nobody like that. But on the right, the entire Republican Party, except for one guy, is a Israel shill. I mean, we really do need to watch more of the Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson conversation, because you will see just how pathetically servile Ted Cruz was. And so, you know, the reason why the fascists are talking about the left is because they just oppose the left in general. And we actually do represent a threat that could stop the genocide. Whereas anti-Semites on the right, they may be virulent, they may be supporting Hitler, but they don't represent a threat to Israel at all. Not whatsoever. And no, they have no purchase politically. So Israel doesn't give a shit. You could target Jews all you want in America. Israel would support that because they could use it to push their narrative about Israel being a safe haven for Jews. So they don't give a fuck. In fact, they want to encourage fascism on the right and anti-Semitism on the right. And they falsely accuse us of being anti-Semites because we care about that. We care about not being bigoted. We care about not being anti-Semitic. We care about, you know, people being judged unfairly based on a group characteristics or religious belief. And we are opposed to that. So when somebody says, hey, you guys are doing some bigotry, we take that seriously. And that's the only reason they do it, because they're liars and they know we aren't. But we take those kind of accusations seriously. And I got to tell you, chat, you need to stop. You need to stop taking these false accusations of anti-Semitism against left-wing people as legitimate. You need to assume that if it's a left-wing person and they're being accused of anti-Semitism, that it's dog shit and it's bullshit. And I want to show you, like, there is rising anti-Semitism. There's rising anti-Semitism on the right. That's what is happening. I mean, I just saw on my feed, I have to, let me scan for it when we watch it. Let's watch something while I look for it. And here's Jeremy Corbyn, who was falsely smeared as an anti-Semite when he ran for prime minister.
Israel has started another war in the Middle East following the so-called preemptive strikes on Iran. Prime Minister Keir Starmer and other European leaders have reasserted Israel's right to self-defense.
We've had grave concerns about the nuclear program that Iran is putting together, and we absolutely recognise Israel's right to self-defense.
Joining me to discuss this is former leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, who is also pushing for an independent Chilcot-style inquiry into Britain's complicity in the genocide in Gaza. Instead of condemning Israel's act of aggression, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and other European leaders have reasserted Israel's right to defend itself. Can you talk a little bit about your reaction to that, Jeremy?
Well, first of all, they were wrong. What they should have done is absolutely condemned Israel's attack on Iran. What they should have done is immediately tried to make contact with Iran to try to stop any response from Iran in order to bring about some kind of comprehensive peace process. They haven't done that. What they've done is doubled down on a wrong position by building up all the criticism of Iran. And I'm not here to defend Iranian government human rights or anything else, but I am here to defend the right of Iranian people to be able to live in peace just like everybody else in the whole region. And so I think that the response has been wrong. It's also clever by Israel. Israel was condemned universally for acts of genocide, and even the British government eventually got somewhere near the position that they were in breach of international law, international humanitarian law, they called it, which is a very general concept. And then Israel then bombs Iran, Iran responds, and somehow or other, Israel is then immediately presented across the world stage as the victim by Trump, by Starmer, etc., at the G7. And so politically, Israel has conducted a brutal, cynical, but very clever maneuver over the past week.
If we just think about how the strike on Iran has been positioned as a preemptive strike. And
well, a preemptive strike is illegal.
Yeah.
It's actually against international law.
It's aggression.
I mean, they call it a preemptive strike. And they're saying, well, we struck these sites in Iran because we thought they might try and strike us from those sites in Iran. Mm-hmm. Well, every country in the world could do that against its neighbors on the basis that you've got weapons, you could use them against us, so we're going to take those weapons out to stop you using against us. Put it another way around, an unprovoked military attack on a neighbor is totally illegal within international law. It is a war crime. Israel's attacks on Iran are obviously dangerous and reckless, but we have to also recognize that whilst Israel is armed up to the teeth with American and British supplied weapons, mainly American, Iran has developed a considerable military complex of its own, and including hypersonic missiles, which do pierce the Iron Dome, which do land in Israel. So the implications of all this are incredibly serious.
So serious.
Just, I hope it doesn't happen. Just suppose Iran decided to hit the Dimona reactor in Israel.
It doesn't bear thinking about. Why do you think more hasn't been made of Israel's nuclear weapons?
Because fundamentally, the media narrative on most global channels is essentially pro-Israel, despite the genocide findings, despite the continued occupation of Gaza and the West Bank, despite the deaths of, 60,000 and more people already there. Somehow or other, that's now parked, and we're now into...
By the way, 60,000 is not the number. 60,000 is basically denial at this point. They've destroyed every hospital. They've targeted the civilian members of the health ministry. They have, every building is knocked down. It's probably a multiple of that. At least 200,000 conservatively. 300,000 is more likely. And there's God knows what's happening right now as they fully cut off aid and information going into Gaza. And so starvation is rampant. So we don't know if there are hundreds of thousands of people that are near death from starvation because everyone's paying attention to the strikes and attacks on Iran. I know we can't cover it much on stream because of the nature of their content, but there's a vast movement of socialist left-leaning sex workers using their platforms to talk about ICE, anti-war sentiments, capitalism to their highly disaffected male base. I'm really proud of those comrades. Okay, first of all, why couldn't we talk about that? Unless they're doing sexually explicit content, why couldn't I talk about that? What are you talking about? Number one. Number two, that's really cool. That's why I'm saying, why are you saying that? Go bring me all the names of the biggest sex workers doing that. I want to know who that is. Bring me a list of the people. Don't just describe it. I think the chatter might be worried about TOS. Here's how you should think about TOS. I'm not going to send Mike sexually explicit material. or gore. That's how you should think about TOS. Everything else, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I will decide what I will show. Urgent, Israeli army. Iran used a multi-warhead missile posing a new challenge to our defenses. You want me to DM you on a Discord with a list? Yeah, go do that. All right, let's go back to watching Jeremy Corbyn talk about this.
What Keir Starmer and David Lammy call legitimate self-defense. Secondly, it was only dragged out of Lammy during persistent questioning from Richard Bergen and myself that he acknowledged that, reluctantly, that Israel actually has nuclear weapons, is not an adherent to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty or to the Global Ban Treaty. Iran does not have nuclear weapons. How do I know that? Because for once, I believe the CIA when they reported to Congress in March that there are no nuclear weapons in Iran.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
Previous Iranian administrations have said it would be wrong to develop nuclear weapons because they're weapons of mass destruction. Now, I'm not saying there isn't the development of enriched uranium, or which could eventually become plutonium. I'm not saying there isn't that. But as of this moment, there are no nuclear weapons in Iran.
And I think so much has been made over the last 20 months, quite shamelessly often, to justify a genocide, that Israel has the right to self-defend. Do you think Iran has the right to self-defense?
In international law, every country has the right of self-defense. It's there. It's in international law. It's in the UN Charter. It's there. It's clearly there, that right of self-defense. And so that right of self-defense, if it applies to Israel, then it also applies to Iran. It also applies to Palestine. It applies to everybody across the whole piece. Surely the issue is about bringing around about some kind of peace agreement which must centre around the needs and rights of the Palestinian people. Therefore, Israel's withdrawal to its pre-67 borders, away from Gaza and the West Bank. After that, you work out what the future relationship is going to be. But that has to be the basis of it.
Could you tell us a little bit more about what you're trying to achieve with your Gaza bill? And also tell us a little bit more about what happens if you are not able to get a public inquiry. What next?
I proposed a private members bill and calling for an Iraq-style inquiry into the policies relating to Gaza and the Middle East. The bill is now in draft form and will be published very shortly, and it comes up again on the 4th of July. I'm not leaving this issue, and it's not going away. I'm utterly determined that we will get an inquiry somehow or other. I want it to be done officially, authorised by Parliament, with an independent judge-led inquiry into the whole policy. But nevertheless, the demand has got to be there. Why? Britain is supplying weapons to Israel. 15% of the components of the F-35 jets are made in factories in Britain. The security arrangement with Israel means that there's a sharing of information. All those hundreds and hundreds of flights from RAF Akrotiri overflying Gaza, what's happened to the information from them, and the continual supply of weapons into Israel via RAF Akrotiri and other places.
I already have this video ready.
We need to know the truth. So when children are being bombed in a food queue, are we supplying the weapons?
Yeah.
I think you've really eloquently there set out how the kind of web of complicity of the government. Do you think...
I just need to underline, double underline, triple underline this. Germans were not treated like this. We did not do this to Germans. Like, after we defeated Nazi Germany, we didn't force them into queues and then machine gun down the fucking queues of food. We sent billions of dollars of aid. Very few Nazis were actually executed for their crimes at all. In fact, more Nazis joined NATO than were executed at Nuremberg.
The Starmer, Sunak, Lammy, do you think they're war criminals?
If you knowingly supply weapons to a government that's arraigned before both the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, then you become complicit in those crimes.
So your inquiry is going to look at hopefully look at the body of evidence, and I'm sure you will keep going should that inquiry not be brought
I don't give up.
through the parliamentary
I'm not somebody who ever gives up.
processes. But I think what's an interesting discussion at the moment, that people are saying that the British government are not just complicit through those things that you have listed, like the surveillance flights, like the training of Israeli military personnel in the UK. Would you say that they are participants in the genocide?
Yes, they are participants because they're sharing information, they're sharing security information, they're providing weapons. And whilst they say they're giving a lot of money for aid to Gaza, yeah, they are. The trouble is none of it's getting through because Israel is blockading Gaza to prevent food getting through. So we've got a situation where we're supplying weapons to the country that is both bombing and starving the people of Gaza. History is going to be a very, very harsh judge of David Lammy, of Keir Starmer, of Macron, of Trump, of Biden, and of Kamala Harris as well.
One of the things that Declassified has found is that there are Israeli military personnel being trained in the UK. Don't you think it's contemptuous that the government will not reveal anything about the training of Israeli military personnel, that there's almost a privileging of the relationship with Israel over what the public have a right to know?
Exactly. The public do have a right to know, and Parliament has a right to know, and Parliament should have a decision-making process on this. The complicity of Britain in all of this is absolutely huge. And the use of training facilities for Israeli forces in Britain is something that you've dragged out through Declassified and was finally admitted last week in a parliamentary answer to Rachel Maskell. And it came up again yesterday. David Lammy claims it's a very small number of people.
Can I just say to the honourable gentleman, the UK of course provides military courses for our assets, but we always emphasise in all of those courses the critical importance of IHL.
But the other question is the British Armed Forces presence in Israel, and also the commercial presence that's there in Israel for the maintenance of the weapons and the planes that are sold. And so there's this constant toing and froing on a military relationship with Israel. If we really seriously want peace across the whole region, an end to the bombardment, the conflict, and the horrific loss of life, then you've got to do a number of things. One, justice for the people of Palestine. Two, an end to the arms trade that's pumping weapons in there. And three, a comprehensive agreement, including Iran, of all the countries in the region, of some kind of security arrangement for the future. Now, that was on offer at one time. I've attended many nuclear non-proliferation treaty review conferences, and we pushed very hard to get a Middle East weapons of mass destruction free zone, which would have meant...
Which, by the way, Iran wants a nuclear-free zone. They have pledged to do a nuclear-free zone. The only country in the Middle East that doesn't want to agree to a nuclear-free zone is Israel.
And you'd had Israel, Iran, and all the other countries, including Saudi Arabia, in the room together to agree on some kind of non-aggression, that kind of area. None of it is perfect, but God, all of that's got to be better than what we've got now.
Declassified UK is an independent media organisation. If you want to see more interviews like this and more of our independent investigative journalism, please go to our website, please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you can give us your support, that would be very much
appreciated. I'll be appreciated. They seem cool, Chad. I like Jeremy Corbyn, but Jeremy Corbyn teaches us a very important lesson. The very important lesson of Jeremy Corbyn is don't be a pussy. Don't be a nice guy.
To this is the nuclear angle. I mean, I know this is being justified based on the idea that Iran is like minutes away from having a nuclear arsenal. I mean, I'm astonished they don't have one already. And if
Oh my god,
like,
dude!
Like,
I'm going nuts.
But forget Iran's like potential nuclear weapons program. Israel has an arsenal of several hundred nuclear weapons and second strike.
U.S. Jews fleeing Israel, Iran hostilities to fly home in Florida-backed airlift. I thought they had nowhere safe to go. What happened? Why are Israelis coming to the United States? I thought Israel was the only safe place for Jewish people. Why are they coming here? Oh, wait, it's because we hate anti-Semitism here. Oh, wait, it's because America is a safe haven for people of every religion. That's called pluralism.
Capability that is holding America and the entire region of the Middle East hostage, essentially. Because, like, I mean, they could use them, but, like, what is your assessment? Like, now that Iran is now officially at war and under siege, what is your assessment? Like, are they going to test or build a nuclear weapon soon?
I don't think, yeah.
Because if they are, I've been enriching uranium in my apartment, and I have a little bit that I can lend them.
Yeah, no. If I could take the fucking limitless pill and learn all the scary math you need to do to make a thermonuclear bomb, I would get on a fucking Skype call with them right now.
I think. Here's the thing. There was a major general in the IRGC, Mohsen Rezai, that went on state TV yesterday and was like, no, we're not really thinking of doing that right now. President Pezeshkian was in parliament today and said the same thing. As long as Khamenei is alive, that fatwa against nuclear weapons is going to remain in place, I think. I don't think he's going to change it. I think that's very important to him and the rest of the Islamic Republic's establishment as like a point of dignity, like a point of ideological firmness, that if they were to break on that, then it would, I don't know, it would unravel something, though that's something I'm not entirely clear about. Right now, I mean, nuclear scientists have been talking about the fact that they've had this kind of technology for years to make a nuclear weapon, but they've never been given the order to do so. So it's just been sort of sitting in this holding pattern, this stasis where they're kind of just simmering below the surface, but they never.
I mean, Seamus, I was thinking of that video you posted of a woman on the streets of Tehran just shouting, "Give us an atomic bomb. Where's our atom bomb?" And then the whole crowd starts yelling with her.
I love her.
I agree completely. Like, I don't know about you, chat, but if I was being attacked constantly by a country for having for a nuclear program, and they said, oh, we got to attack now before they get to a nuclear bomb, and then we'll be forced to stop, I think the answer would be, I need to get a nuclear bomb immediately. And, like, let's be honest. Let's be honest. If you have a nuclear bomb, then it is considered not worth attacking you. So if you are going to stand up to America on any level, you better have nukes. Why do you think Brits got nukes? Why do you think the French got nukes? They got nukes because they wanted to be able to defend themselves and not have to completely rely on the United States. They didn't trust the United States to defend them. So why the fuck do you think that every other country in the world that the United States is hostile to shouldn't have nukes? And if either nuclear proliferation is a policy we give to everyone or no one, non-nuclear proliferation, I am personally in favor of a nuclear-free world, or nuclear technology being held only for emergency use by humanity. Maybe we need nukes for some sort of unforeseen, threat. But the idea that we should have them pointing at each other on hair triggers is fucking madness.
Our atom bomb, like, you talked about it for years. You're going to jump out or what?
I had a high school geopolitics course decades ago that taught us if Iran got a nuke, they would immediately bomb Israel. What do they want? Like, and then why didn't they get it? They have nuclear reactors. They have centrifuges. They could have gotten it. Why didn't they get it 20 years ago then?
You know, people I think are very, like, after the failure of the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal that Obama negotiated, there was an observable change in the public discourse about previously really not wanting to broach the idea of a nuclear weapon in public. And now it's become a very regular topic of discussion. And post the war, like the strikes against Iran, it has never been at this kind of fever pitch before. Right after the attacks happened, there was an Iranian MP who went on state TV and was positively begging the supreme leader to like change the fatwa and start building a nuclear weapon. And the hosts were trying to like steer him away from that and be like, no, well, hold on. This is a very serious issue. Like, no, this is a fatwa, we're not gonna do it. And he's like, well, then we did all these retaliations. Then what were they for? What did they do? We need this. How long are we going to allow our commanders to be killed and our children to be killed without this atom bomb? This is on the minds of many, many people. And the fact that they are discussing this at all, that they're not going to change it, means that this pressure is continuing to build. But again, I don't think as long as Khamenei is alive, that is going to change.
I mean, if it wasn't clear before, it should be clear to everyone now. If you're outside like the NATO, EU, aegis, there is no sovereignty without nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, there's just the two concepts do not exist separately.
Let's just look at the history of this here, right? Libya, when it gave up its nuclear program, what happened only several years later? NATO intervened and now it's a complete failed state. Syria had a nuclear program, not necessarily a nuclear weapons program, but just a nuclear program. Israel bombed it. They never pursued it again. And then several years later, it was able to be utilized as a playground for foreign powers. Like this continuously. We see examples of nuclear programs that were voluntarily given up or or kept below a certain threshold, or they were bombed out of existence and never reestablished. And the outcome of all of these options, of all of these destinies, has been complete failure. But look, like, I hate to use this as an example because North Korea is not a favored state by a lot of people, but you cannot deny that North Korea
No one's
is not
fucking with
messed
them.
with. No one's fucking with North
them.
Korea. It is not an option seriously discussed by anyone. They've talked about denuclearization, but only if America leaves the peninsula, and America isn't leaving the peninsula. So guess what? They're keeping their nukes and nobody is talking about invading it. That's the point. They continue to exist because of those nuclear weapons. As long as Iran doesn't have them, they will remain under this threat no matter what the outcome of this specific war is. I believe that firmly.
Especially in the case of Libya and Syria. Those are crucial to bring up because also in addition to giving up their nuclear programs, both those countries cooperated with the West during the global war on terror. Fat lot of fucking good it did them. When they've got the beam on you, there's nothing you can actually do. I've seen people go, oh, it's, Iran and their obsession with Israel, or Iran and their goddamn nuclear program. Like, they could do anything to stop this short of just declaring Iran is over as an entity. Come here and make fucking, make the Mecca for sex offenders at all types of nightclubs.
I will say this. What I've said this before, and I'll say it again, even though I have been accused of Houthi fetishism by many academics.
I'll hold that bag, Seamus, for you if you want it.
Uh-oh. Breaking IRGC. Israel must immediately evacuate the Dimona nuclear facility. Trump wants to strike Iran only if the U.S. can destroy the Fordow enrichment facility with a bunker bomb. The Pentagon concluded earlier this year they don't go deep enough. Totally destroying Fordow requires a tactical nuke. Top Pentagon officials were told in a briefing this year that a bunker buster bombs would likely only bury the facility.
I got a Houthi fetish, and I need more missiles.
The Yemeni strategists, from the moment the word go of this war, have consistently known what to do, and they've consistently had, I think, the right approach to Western powers and their negotiators. They understand that, like, the time in which America or Israel could be negotiated with, if they ever could be negotiated with, is over.
Negotiations, they were at the table on Sunday,
Yeah, no, it's not real.
And now they're being asked to come back to the table. The table's been blown up. What are you talking about?
No, these people are rabbit dogs.
The negotiators are dead.
Ugh.
There will be empty chairs at that table because you killed the people that were like, Jesus Christ. How could you even bring up that? It's just insulting to even bring up that fucking concept.
No, there is a reason why when Yemen, when they were approached for negotiations to separate the fronts, they were like, no, achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and we'll stop firing. End of discussion. We're not doing indirect negotiations. We're not doing separate negotiations. You either do this or you don't. When it came to America coming to the table and saying we want a ceasefire, they said, okay, if you stop firing on us, we'll stop firing on you, but we're not stopping fire on Israel. That's the deal. End of discussion. And then they took it. That's the strategy that Iran should be taking, quite frankly. And they're understanding right now that these negotiations were always a fucking lie and a fucking charade, and they're not doing them anymore. But if they trust America again on this matter, if they're not firm, then I think the outcome is going to be very bad, because there's nothing to indicate that they're trustworthy in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, I just don't think that I don't think there's any way to look at this situation other than Israel is shattering the bipartisan consensus on supporting it. And two, if we go into war with Iran, this country will crack up. This will be America's Afghanistan. Or, you know, Vietnam 2, Electric Boogaloo. When I say America's Afghanistan, I mean the Soviet Afghanistan. Not America's Afghanistan, which also was our own Afghanistan. But you get my point. Like, it will absolutely crack this country up. Yeah, we watched that yesterday. Also, Brad Lander is a cuck. I should have endorsed Brad Lander. The moment I endorsed Brad Lander, he's a fucking cuck. The moment I said you could put him number 2, he's a fucking cuck. I should have stuck with my original fucking instincts. I let you guys trick me. And I said, well, he's cross-endorsing. I was always like, the only person worth a vote in New York is Zohran. And he's a fucking cuck. And that reminds me, chat, there is no anti-Semitism crisis. Period.
There's a massive anti-Semitism crisis right now. Coincidentally, at the moment that Israel is conducting genocide in Gaza, a lot of people are really susceptible to this sort of narrative spread by pro-Israel organizations, because anti-Semitism tends to be held up as this sort of very special, sort of unique racism that is always ever present and always far more serious than any other sort of discrimination, regardless of how little the evidence actually supports that claim. People will see supposedly reputable organizations state such things and they will just believe it uncritically without actually looking at the evidence themselves. So today we are going to dissect this sort of narrative and just what the evidence they provide for this actually is. There was a viral tweet recently from a pro-genocide advocate who goes by the name Aviv Bitterman, MD. Typically, it should always be a red flag when you see someone identifying themselves proudly with a totally irrelevant title to the things that they actually talk about, because these people tend to be those who don't actually have any relevant expertise or knowledge or any real credibility in the field that they are actually dealing with, yet by displaying an irrelevant title, they aim to nonetheless create a sort of respectability. And this fella, oh man, does he ever meet that description. So the purpose of this anti-Semitism crisis narrative is to draw attention away from the genocide being carried out in the name of supposedly the Jewish people in Gaza by Zionists attempting to conflate themselves with the very term Jew and concocting a narrative that they themselves are the victim of some sort of genocidal hatred campaign, and that somehow the people who are advocating against the Zionist genocide in Gaza are to blame for this. Hence, the real victims here aren't the children who they are massacring, but rather they themselves. So let's take a look at his claims here, and then we'll look at the actual data for them, and we'll have a good laugh. He says, since October 7, 2023, anti-Semitic incidents, including those rising to the level of threats or violence, overwhelmingly all come from the far left, not the far right. This held true for all organizations or incidents types. 132 incidents of violence or threats from the far left, 514 incidents of vandalism from the far left. Okay, let's take a look at the actual data for this from Combat Anti-Semitism. And you can see the narrative here, right? They're trying to frame that the problem that's happening right now is not literally fucking Israel doing a Holocaust in Gaza, but this false narrative of they themselves facing a Holocaust. Like, they literally directly compare this to the Holocaust. We are facing the most severe wave of anti-Semitism since the end of the Second World War. Oh man, Jesus Christ. So what do they consider to be an anti-Semitic incident? Okay, let me show you. For them, an indicator of anti-Semitism, I shit you not, is a demonstration featuring a communist flag, banners from organizations such as the Party for Socialism and Liberation in the United States and communist parties elsewhere in the world, and calls for the destruction of Israel under the guise of Palestinian liberation. So if you say liberate Palestine, they count that as a left-wing anti-Semitic incident. They say right here, 96.4% of their supposedly recorded anti-Semitic incidents are Israel-related and or anti-Zionist. 97%. So 3% of their supposed claims, if they even happened, are actual anti-Semitism. 97% of them are just them, and they just admit this, by the way, they just admit this in their supposed fact sheet. 97% of them are just them saying that if you say anything negative about Israel or pro-Palestine, that's an anti-Semitic incident. This is like a parody. Implicit indicators, use of terms common among but not exclusive to far-left circles such as settler colonialism, Israeli apartheid, and genocide. So if you call Israel settler colonial, if you say that Israel is apartheid, if you say that Israel is committing genocide, they count that as a left-wing anti-Semitic incident. And this is Avi Bitterman, medical doctor Avi Bitterman. This is his source. Like, if there's a fucking protest, even protests organized by Jewish groups, they count that as an anti-Semitic incident. It says,
and that's that. As Bad and Panada has fully demonstrated, left-wing anti-Semitism is not real. It is a phantom. It's made up. It's basically, if you think there's a genocide in Gaza, they call you an anti-Semite. If you think Israel is oppressing Palestinians, you're an anti-Semite. If you think that Israel was founded as a colonial project, you're an anti-Semite. And guess what? All those things are happening. All those things are true. I am not anti-Semitic, because anti-Semitism does not equal anti-Zionism. That's just a blatant lie that anti-Zionists are using because they know that we on the left care about bigotry. That's what they're taking advantage of. They're taking advantage of the fact that not everybody knows everything, but left-wingers in general are incredibly concerned about bigotry. And so they use our concern as a concern troll so that we are constantly slowing down and self-examining and having infighting and circular firing squads and witch hunts looking for the anti-Semites that don't exist. And then they interpret any kind of ambiguity as being evidence of secret anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, on the right, they're saying Germany did nothing wrong. Meanwhile, on the far right, they're saying Adolf Hitler is right. That is what they're saying over there. That's anti-Semitism, not this crap. And if you see someone eating the bait, they're bad faith. And you need to humiliate them. You need to shame them for falling for bullshit, because I don't believe they're this stupid in 2025. I think they're intentionally bad faith.
Right here, radical student organizations such as Jewish Voice for Peace orchestrated these incidents. This is actually fucking comical. I honestly can't believe it, how blatant they are with this. Like, this is the sort of thing you want to keep on the down low, because the second that anyone who isn't already indoctrinated into your Zionist bullshit sees this, they're just going to fucking laugh at you. So to be clear here, if we were to remove the 97% of instances of supposed anti-Semitism that these guys purport to have counted, of left-wing anti-Semitism they purport to have counted, and even if we assume that the remaining 3% were actually legitimate instances of anti-Semitism, the anti-Semitic incidents that they ascribe to far-left ideologies go from 4,329 in total to 130. I honestly am shocked and flabbergasted at how fucking stupid these people are. Like, they just completely rely on you being uncritical and not looking at what they're actually using to concoct this unprecedented anti-Semitism narrative, which is clearly an attempt by them to play the fucking victims, explicitly in order to support the genocide currently being carried out in the name of Jewish supremacy in Gaza. How utterly embarrassing. And it's also embarrassing that so many of you supposedly pro-Palestine people buy this shit. Check yourselves. There is no anti-Semitism crisis. It's a beat up by pro-Israel organizations. There is no really meaningful systemic anti-Semitism in the US. Whatever isolated instances of legitimate hate crimes that there are, they are faced far worse by other groups. And it makes no sense to focus so hard on anti-Semitism like this today, unless you have an ulterior motive, like trying to run cover for Israel and distract from its genocide, for example. Norman Finkelstein has a good clip about this, where he talks about what anti-Semitism actually meant and really still means in the way that people conceive of it, and the actual reality of what things are like today.
When you talked about anti-Semitism, it meant, does it affect your job opportunities? Does it affect your access to certain institutions of higher education? Does it affect where you're going to live? Does it affect negatively your interactions with the law? That's what anti-Semitism meant. They were quantifiable, palpable, lucid expressions of this phobia, whatever you want to call anti-Semitism, okay? By that reckoning, Can you name me a place in the United States where a Jew would have trouble purchasing a home or renting an apartment? Name me one place. I'd be curious. Can you name me one university, one college, one in the whole United States where a Jew would have trouble getting in because he or she was Jewish? One. Could you name me one profession? Does the medical profession discriminate against Jews? There's a legal profession. I mean, that was once a problem. That's why Jewish law firms are created, because they couldn't get into the white shoe WASP law firms. Does that exist anymore? So this is just completely and totally ridiculous to talk about anti-Semitism in the United States. On the contrary, being Jewish gets you into professions. It's an asset in our society.
So yeah.
I mean, it's objectively true. It is objectively true. It is an asset. And I see nothing wrong with people in their community drawing together and supporting each other. I can't tell you how many Polish clubs I've been to, or Puerto Rican society clubs, or Jewish community centers, or Catholic community centers, or Catholic churches. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with supporting your community and building up senses of community. Now, I believe in a more pluralistic society. I don't like seeing people close themselves off. I would believe in things that are open for all and more communications and more because I'm a left winger, but there's nothing wrong with that. But to say that there's rampant anti-Semitism in the United States, especially on the left, is just nonsensical bullshit. Or that Jews face discrimination as a group in the United States in 2025 is wrong. It is nowhere near the discrimination that, for example, Muslims face in this country.
Don't spread this bullshit narrative of there being some sort of unprecedented anti-Semitism crisis in the US or anywhere. It's a complete beat-up, designed specifically by Zionist organizations because they're trying to distract from the Gaza genocide. It really is that simple, okay? And when you spend 2 seconds looking at the supposed instances of anti-Semitism that they cite, they just debunk themselves in embarrassing ways, as we just went over. Like, think for 2 seconds. You're telling me that you genuinely believe that this guy right here and others exactly like him are victims of some sort of like massive minority oppression campaign. The worst thing that's ever happened to this guy and all of his Zionist buddies who scream that they are like feeling unsafe is that the barista at Starbucks wrote their name as Braden rather than Braden. The people spreading this narrative are some of the most impossibly privileged, coddled whites I've ever seen in my life, and they are laundering the idea that they are like on the cusp of being genocided, and it's all because you are protesting too hard against the genocide in Gaza that they wholeheartedly support. Incredible. Avi Bitterman feels unsafe? Give me a fucking break.
Absolute dog shit. Absolute dog shit. All right, Hassan went on Mideast Eye, which is super exciting. I wanted to watch this.
It feels like
so this is pretty exciting stuff. I wanted to see this. So let's check it out.
Like we are living through a dying empire, and a dying empire is always going to do a lot of violent things in its last breath. So that's what all of this instability actually is. I think America is trying to desperately pack up the entire Middle Eastern region finally, and that is going.
Jewish societies being very tight-knit and community-oriented is the reason why Jewish people are overrepresented in many high-paying career fields. Like the Coen brothers got their first film funded by going out to their Jewish parents' dentist's office asking for funding. I mean, yes, that's why upper-middle-class people tend to do better, because they have connections with other upper-middle-class people, and so they have more ability to experiment and fail. Success is just is basically hitting the lottery. And the more wealth and connections you have, the more chances you get to succeed. Whereas if you're from the bottom, you only get 1 or 2 shots before you're fucked. That's why the upper middle class reproduces itself better, because it gives people room to fail and room to experiment and room to find their place. And then when they do, have connections to succeed even more.
Going to, of course, be a tremendously bloody affair.
So, President Trump, the peacemaker, from where you're sitting, how is that going?
It's definitely not going great. I mean, I never really believed that Donald Trump was actually going to be a peacemaker. I have a firm commitment to the theory that American foreign policy is uniparty. That's part of the reason why you're hearing Brett McGurk and even someone from the Kamala Harris campaign as recently as last week talk about how they are either directly aligned with Donald Trump in terms of how hard they would defend Israel, or even trying to outflank Donald Trump in terms of how fast they would defend Israel, even though Israel has conducted this first strike against Iran amidst this Iran denuclearization negotiations that are ongoing. So yeah, Donald Trump was also a liar when he said he was going to end these wars. He said day one, Israel-Palestine, it's over. Day one, Ukraine, Russia, it's over. Now, of course, with respect to dealing with foreign adversaries like Russia, that's a sovereign nation. It's a lot more difficult than to actually cause Israel to stop its ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. Israel is not only a client state, but Israel is basically an extension of American foreign intervention in the region. It's basically an American state. We give 70% of all the defensive and offensive weapons to Israel since October 7. Israel would not be able to do this ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza without our go-ahead and our knowledge and our munitions and our political cover. And Donald Trump could have, quite literally could have, stopped this at any moment, just as Biden had the same opportunity to stop this with one simple phone call, and he chose not to do so. So it's not surprising that Trump has used this negotiations process, this denuclearization agreement negotiations process, where the American envoys have pushed for maximalist positions, claiming that Iran cannot have any nuclear capabilities at all for civic power grids, that Iran cannot enrich any uranium whatsoever. And then using that negotiations process to allow Israel to have some kind of shelter, some kind of cover to tactically strike first amidst these ongoing negotiations. That doesn't seem like a peaceful negotiator at all. I think America is showing the world over and over again, just like with what Steve Witkoff did with Hamas, as they cut a backdoor deal with Hamas to release American-Israeli occupying force soldier Idan Alexander, with nothing but just assurances that America would potentially be a better party to deal with than Israel. We keep refusing to follow through on our commitments and showing every other party in the region that we are unstable, we're dangerous, and we're just as violent as Israel is.
But how does that fit with the MAGA mantra of America first? There was this campaign pledge to put domestic interests before all other interests. Is that compatible with this hawkish picture you're painting of a US that's still playing its hand in regime changes overseas?
I mean, it's just lying. I don't know how else to describe it. Politicians lie all the time. And
one of the things that I kind of realize as the more I go through life is that a lot of people don't really ever think, especially right-wingers. Like, they don't ever actually think, and when they're asked to think, that's when their eyes go really wide, right? Because to them, it's not really about thinking or trying to understand. It's about demonstrating their position within some sort of social hierarchy or feeling a sense of like control or power. It's not about thought. It's not about believing what you're saying, right? Like, here's an example of what I'm talking about. This guy is an old man. Okay. Simple. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Now, serious question for you. And this is a serious question. How do you feel about the Confederacy of the United States of America? How do you feel about the Germans? Okay, let's see what the arguments are. Because we allow them to have nukes. Iran isn't close to nukes. They are all dead. All the scientists and all the military leaders gone. Bye-bye. No, they're not. Every single person who has been killed is an imminently replaceable person. You killed figureheads. You killed titles. They cannot even get to the main nuclear enrichment facility. Iran fucked around and guess they're finding out. It's very funny to write this for Israel, but every single ally of Israel has been erased from the universe, no longer exists, is a puff of smoke. People, pretty simple, don't support terrorists. Israel is the most terroristic society in the history of the world outside of Nazi Germany. They started this mess. Okay. So this is kind of ultimately the way a right-winger thinks. He's not really saying this because he knows it to be true. He's not interested in knowing things. He's not curious about this. He doesn't care that Israel takes $330 billion because they bribe our politicians. He doesn't care that they murder Americans all the time. So my guess is you're not even American. Are you actually American? Like, are you actually American? All world legend? Are you actually an American? I don't think you are. I suspect you might be an Israeli or a European. All world equals Israeli. Yeah, definitely not an American. I can kind of detect Euro cuck energy. Sir, I live beautifully. Yeah, this is definitely a Euro cuck. This is definitely a Euro cuck. 100%. Asman for the win, said no one ever. Born and raised American. Americans don't talk like this. Euro cock. All right, until you post your full name and your home state, you can't post anymore. You can't post it. I'm gonna give you a ban. You could, when you post your full name, a link to a picture of your face, where you write out, "I support the Central Committee" on a piece of paper, you can't post anymore. Here's their following list. Gooner detected. You're following Asmongold's account, and then you came here. What a cuck.
Donald Trump clearly is a tremendous liar. He lies every waking moment of every single day. And yes, the supposedly isolationist policies that the Donald Trump administration was supposed to implement, that never came to fruition in the first term. He was an isolationist the first term, even though he falsely presented his record as not starting any new wars, even though he bombed the Middle East in spectacular fashion, greatly escalated even Obama's drone wars, as a matter of fact, which was shocking because Obama was the drone king. And yet he still presented himself as a peaceful dove, as he did in 2016 successfully against Hillary Clinton. He presented himself once again as a peaceful dove after years of conflict under the Biden administration. He said he was going to be the reasonable guy who comes in, the peaceful dove who comes in and actually finally puts an end to all these endless wars. And now we are saber rattling against a regional power that America and Israel both have salivated at the prospect of dismantling for the past 30, 40 years at this point. And I do feel like, judging by the statements coming from Israeli officials, this is their final battle, the final step in America's grand design in the region. It would have happened with every other president as well. Maybe not in the same exact ways. I think Donald Trump has a different style and a different way of speaking, where he's more blunt, he's more honest about America's ambitions. In many instances, there's a brutal honesty to the cruel way in which he speaks about America's allies and America's adversaries, America's enemies. But when it comes down to it, yeah, he lied to his voters about being an isolationist. There's no isolationist American presidency. There's no anti-war party in this country. There's no anti-war party. There are very few real anti-war politicians in this country. I think the military-industrial complex is far too powerful for that. And I think imperialism is far too important as a mechanism to continue capitalism. And America is the defender of global capitalism, finance capitalism, and imperialism is a necessity under that structure.
Okay, so no such thing as an anti-war presidency and no such thing as an anti-war party in America. What about the American people? Do they want war?
Okay, let me just say something about that. That's not true. Okay, like I get the point. I get the activist point. I get the chant. I get the analysis. But it's wrong. If the United States of America, if you hold enough power, you can order the troops home. If you hold enough power, you can dismantle shit. I'm sorry, that's just not true. And it's this weird doomer mentality. It's just wrong. You absolutely could do this. We lost in Iraq. We lost in Afghanistan. We lost in Vietnam. You know, we fought, we gave in, we gave up and accepted a draw in Korea. This happens all the time. And it happens because it becomes a political calculation a geopolitical calculation in Washington, D.C., and that includes electing people that are willing to make that geopolitical calculation. I feel like there's this kind of bookworm leftism that I see overwhelming the left online, where people are like, well, according to this, and they determine everything. They have this very deterministic, mechanistic view of politics, which is not Marxist, by the way. That is not Marxist, by the way. And you just look at these things and you fail to understand how they actually operate. And that it is human beings that power these machines. These machines do not exist. They are dead without human beings operating them. And you could turn the ship a different direction. Sure, it may not steam in the direction of socialism, but it can steam away from interventionism. It can steam away from being so much of a vicious empire. And he's right about finance capitalism requiring imperialism. That is true. But the solution to that is the destruction of finance capitalism, which we have the power to do.
Yes and no.
Why do people fall for the Doomer trap? Because it gives them permission not to feel bad when you lose. Because if you're in the Doomer trap, you never have to try, because trying is pointless. I consider it the final stage of liberalism. A socialist is a revolutionary optimist. If you're not, you ain't.
A lot of Americans don't actually understand that endless war is a part of the reason why we get to...
I know what he meant. I don't feel singled out for being a European. No, you're not being singled out for being European. You're a European if you're an Asmongold fan who comes in here and is like, I live beautifully and born and raised American. No American talks like that. There's this sort of like European cuck right, like this European soy right, who's like living off the social safety net of Europe and spends all their day on the computer and then gets radicalized by watching American right-wing propaganda. And they like come in and like, and they are some of the most reactionary people online because they can exist because Europe has a social safety net. Whereas in America, those people would be fucking dead from opioids because, you know, there's no social safety net for them to rest on. So you have a large percentage of like Asmongold, the like Asmongoldian right wing are Europeans living off of the social safety net.
Have, you know, cheap oil and numerous other benefits, as opposed to like how poor the material conditions and living standards are in the global south. That's the brutal truth of it all. But it's good that Americans don't recognize that, because if they did, I think a lot more would be salivating for additional war. Americans fancy themselves to be anti-war for the most part, and the reason why is because they don't like seeing coffins draped with the American flag, and therefore war is a constant, but it's just constantly happening over there. It's not happening to us over here. America has tremendous proximity from the impact of these wars as well. Part of the reason why we were so dominant after World War II, because our factories and our robust industrial base was not destroyed, was not eviscerated. So because of that proximity, our media, and because our media is constantly justifying endless war, we get to basically have our cake and eat it too. Americans get to feel like they want to be peacekeepers. They feel like they have to be the world police. But also simultaneously, they get to, talk about how little appetite they have for war, which is why they vote for a guy like Donald Trump, who presents himself falsely as a peaceful dub, as an anti-war candidate. Having said that, how much of that is honest, I don't know. I think we're a very malleable population. We're very easy to do, very easy to influence, and therefore, I think all it would take is for Trump to come out and be like, America first actually means Iran can't have nuclear weapons. No country can be sovereign. And that means like we have to send some corn-fed boys from Nebraska on a cruiser to potentially get destroyed by Shahed drones. That's what America first means to me now. And that's what America first is going to mean to a lot of people tomorrow. So who knows? Who knows how well.
Holy shit, did you get some Oilers? Like most of my subscriptions, it's like half people paying for their own, 20% primes, and the rest, like, you know, between 30% to 40%, depending on the month gifties, somewhere around that. We had one special Oiler open presents gave $5.50, which is pretty crazy. We will not allow Al Jazeera to be broadcast in Israel as it poses a threat to our security. I call on the public to report anyone who watches this channel to the police. Only democracy in the Middle East, by the way. I assume Asmongold supports this, which is like people peeking into your windows to see if you're watching the wrong news channel.
He'll be able to sell it. But I think, you know, we are a very heavily propagandized nation. There's a lot of nascent and reactivated Islamophobia in this country, especially Islamophobia that had a real consequential go at it in terms of propaganda since the war on terror, since 9/11, and I think you know, we've reactivated that nascent Islamophobia since October 7, 2023 here in this country. So I think that Americans will still, at the end of the day, find a way to say, no, it's actually fine if we bomb Iran. On that front, actually, I will say we've been bombing Yemen. The American government continued Operation Prosperity Guardian, basically. It exchanged hands from the Biden administration to the Trump administration. Tremendously costly. Tremendously murderous, once again, completely illegal. We're just violating the sovereignty of a foreign nation, this time Yemen. It's almost a ritual at this point. Every president has to bomb Yemen. And that was not even talked about in American media. The only thing that they talked about is like why they revealed that they were going to bomb Yemen to a journalist, who I say journalist in air quotes. He's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. He's a Hosberist and also a propagandist for the State Department. But like that was Signalgate. That was the real point of contention. No one was asking like, why are we bombing Yemen? Why is Donald Trump bombing Yemen? What's happening? I thought he was anti-war. What's going on? And I think Americans think, oh, we just have to bomb these other countries all the time. So I think like as long as there's no like boots on the ground invasion, I do think that if America was engaging in like limited striking with its Air Force, as the New York Times, CNN, Fox News, and every outlet is currently fantasizing about with respect to bombing Fordo, the deep underground nuclear facility in Iran that is only penetrable with American weapons, as far as we know.
And it may not even be. Randy Fine has topped the most insane shit he's ever said. There's a reason the first time I shook Netanyahu's hand, I did not wash until I could touch the heads of my children. This is America first? Like a 12-year-old seeing a band they like and going, I'll never wash my hands. I shook Kurt Cobain's hand. Like, what the fuck? But for Israel's prime minister, it's a representative from Florida? Jesus. You're back.
If they were to do that, I think...
I top American first? Oh, shit, you're right. The best part of being given to Twitter Blue is you can do that. The other thing that's really funny about me having Twitter Blue is that, first of all, it costs me nothing. And the second thing is all my replies are boosted to the top. Oh, it's so fucking great.
Maybe they could sell it as not really an act of war in the absence of boots on the ground, military invasion in Iran. So that's, I think, what we're gearing towards right now. And there will be a lot of right-wing Trump supporters that will gladly get on board. And I think more importantly than right-wing Trump supporters that will gladly get on board, you'd be shocked at the number of Democrats who will be on board with Trump doing what must be done. I'm not really, liberals saying things like, I'm not really pro-war, but what Donald Trump is doing is defending Israel. And Israel is an incredibly important ally. It's the only moral country in the world, in the Middle East, and the only democracy in the Middle East. And Iran is horrible to women, so we have to kill all the women in Iran with American troops. Like, that is totally a liberal point of propaganda that I can see from American political commentators and writers, journalists alike. We've already started seeing it.
Now, it is true that, as you say, aggression played out by the American military is often happening abroad. However, there are currently Americans in America who are facing the might of state power. You are, of course, streaming from LA, where there have been almost 2 weeks of protests. The president sent in thousands of Marines and military to squash unrest. He's so far failed to shut it down. as we approach 2 weeks, are things settling? How does this end?
This has been a spectacular escalation as opposed to the first administration, where it's very obvious that the Trump administration is basically punishing blue states and blue cities just for being Democrats and for being liberals and being progressive. The ICE apprehensions and ICE detentions aren't born out of a real issue that we must solve. It's the entire purpose of it is to, from their perspective, is to combat crime. Undocumented migrants are not responsible for a.
Did he have like, what's wrong with his fucking microphone? Why is it like clipping and shitty? What the fuck did he do?
Higher percentage of crime per capita than natural born U.S. citizens are. They do less crime. They're constantly worried about potentially being deported. So it makes sense. They do significantly less crime, as a matter of fact. So the idea, the entire notion of mass deportations is built on a lie that the Democrats never actually counter-messaged against, which was very frustrating to watch. And now there's even more evidence that it's a lie, because Donald Trump is not going after these supposed criminals. They're going to places of work. They're going to factories. They're going to the farms, and they're doing dragnet campaigns on farmhands. They're doing dragnet campaigns on people who are playing a formative role in American commerce, in agricultural production, in construction. And this is very disruptive to the economy, as people had predicted already, myself included, beyond the incalculable human toll and the inhumanity of it all, right? It's because it's depraved to just rip people away from their families and black bag them and possibly ship them off to a slave labor colony in El Salvador named Sicat. They're doing this purely out of spite, and they're doing this purely to satisfy the needs of a white nativist 20% of their voter base that's like really excited at enacting any kind of like racial justice that will make them feel more superior, that will make them feel better, all as a mechanism of distraction that like these guys and their living conditions are getting worse and worse year over year. But as long as like the government is actually fighting for this interest that they've created for me by punishing undocumented migrants, someone that's lower than me, I maybe have it better than I ever would under a Democratic leadership. That's the calculation for a lot of these people. Donald Trump came out and said, after Steve Miller said we need 3,000 kidnappings a day, and the ICE deportations greatly escalated after that in Los Angeles. They went to Home Depot in a predominantly Latino neighborhood. And they went to a warehouse as well in the fashion district downtown. Again, lots of Latino workers. They arrested a union leader, the largest union, SEIU is the largest union in California. They arrested the leader, and they're charging him with some ridiculous charges. And they're doing all of this, I guess at this point, 2 weeks ago. And they're doing this simply to prove a point, the idea that like, you know, they are actually very militant against like dealing with this undocumented migration problem, even though no one in California would ever tell you that undocumented migrants are a problem at all. These are people who are, you know, parts of our communities. They're a part of the social fabric here. They're a part of what makes California great, part of what makes Los Angeles awesome. And so of course people got very upset. And then last week Donald Trump came out and said, actually we should roll back the apprehensions that ICE is doing at places of business like hospitality industry and also the farms, because business leaders reached out to Trump and were like, what are you doing? You're disrupting our output. You're disrupting commerce. You're not supposed to do this. What are you doing? Stop, you know, detaining my workers. So Donald Trump said, let's pull it back. Well, I thought these guys were all criminals. If they're criminals, why are you going to the courts? If they're criminals, why are you going to the immigration courts and waiting outside of the immigration courts?
Okay, I think it's Hassan's mic. I was like, is my Bluetooth disconnecting? Is my Bluetooth disconnecting?
A guy who is attending his court date because his immigration status is in limbo. If they're criminals, why are you, putting a mask on your face and not even explaining that you're actually a cop, or lying about having
Okay, chat. This is crazy. This audio is okay. Listen, as soon as we're done on this topic, I'm gonna switch because this audio is just killing me. It's actually killing me.
A warrant when you only have an administrative warrant but not a judicial warrant, when you want to do an unlawful search and seizure to dupe people into opening their doors for you. If these guys are criminals, why are you going to the graduations of schools to kidnap children? Why are you trying to go to elementary schools to kidnap children so you can hopefully maybe kidnap their families, like use them as bait? I think the real criminals here is this administration. They are a criminal administration. The way that they're behaving is insane. It's identical to Nazi Germany. And apparently they get really touchy-feely about that when you call ICE Gestapo, but that's precisely what they're doing. And now Donald Trump has said he wants to escalate the deportations only in blue states and blue cities. But I thought these Republicans, the people that voted for Donald Trump in red cities, voted for him because they wanted to get these criminal migrants out. So why is he only getting these quote-unquote criminal migrants out in blue cities? Because everybody understands that there is no real problem with undocumented immigration in this country. The real problem with undocumented immigration in this country is that they are simply not being processed, cleared, and authorized as expeditiously as they should be. That's the only problem. The real crime here is the fact that we use and abuse this permanent underclass of laborers without actually offering them the proper clearance, while keeping their immigration status in limbo, because that way they're more malleable and they're easier to discard. And the Trump administration is now using them as a pawn to make a political point, and it's gross and it's disgusting. If that wasn't the case, they'd be deporting undocumented migrants in red states as well. As a matter of fact, they'd probably focus on the red states first. Florida and Texas are the two largest red states with the number of undocumented population beyond California, Illinois, New Jersey, and New York. So why is he not doing these apprehensions in California and in Florida and Texas? Why is he not actually going after Florida and Texas? Because, he knows that this is an unpopular position.
Hassan, you're absolutely right. It is important to highlight misinformation around migrant crime, and studies in the US show that immigrants are consistently 60 to 50% less likely to be incarcerated.
By the way, this actually is a terrible talking point. It's a good talking point for libs, but it's a liberal talking point. And the reason why this talking point is so problematic is the idea that you should judge immigrants collectively based on the actions of an individual is bigotry. That's stage one of bigotry. And you could see it happen time and time again with marginalized identities, whether it's trans people being judged by the actions of one sex criminal, or black people being judged by the actions of a group of people. Like when you say all black people share the shame of the criminals in their community, or all trans people share the shame of the criminals in their community, and all immigrants share the shame of all criminals in their community, that is bigotry. That is oppression. That is a sign of marginalization. Nobody says that about white people. I don't share the shame of every crime white people committed, even though I'm benefiting from the imperialist society they set up. And I'm sorry, chat, the audio is just too fucking bad. It's too fucking bad. I can't listen to the pops. It drives me fucking nuts. And I have a funnier story that makes me smile. That makes me smile quite a bit, that I need to show you immediately. With airspace closed due to the war, Israelis are quietly resorting to private yachts to escape, though few admit they're fleeing missile attacks. The escape flotilla with no pass. Wait a minute. I thought Israel was the only refuge for the Jewish people. Why are they fleeing on yachts? I don't get it. I don't get it. It's almost like the entire propagandistic argument in favor of ethnic cleansing and genocide is a fucking lie. And everybody, even Israelis, acknowledge that Jewish people are perfectly safe in Western countries. Thank you for phrasing this so well. In Europe, the immigrant crime rhetoric is becoming insane. All around me, even highly educated people talk of immigrants with such disgust. If you're willing to paint a broad brush and blame an individual for the crimes of others, then that can immediately be turned against you. I'm sure you have some sort of marginalized identity. Are you an atheist? Are you queer? Are you a woman? Are you a left-winger? are you, there's always some identity that can be marginalized and treated in the same way that people treat immigrants or black people or Muslims. If you start adopting that kind of worldview, if you adopt a framework where individuals are blamed and discriminated against because of the actions of a few, you create this communalist politics that you can never escape from. A way to help people understand that point is to point out that people named Joe committed crimes at a higher rate than people named Michael. Would you support arresting Joes? And it's the same thing with brown eyes versus blue eyes. Marina has recently taken on the atmosphere of a makeshift terminal. Starting at 7 in the morning, people begin to arrive, dragging trolleys and scanning the docks for a yacht scheduled to carry them to Cyprus. Israelis are fleeing to Cyprus. Following Netanyahu's decision to ban Israelis from flying abroad, Haaretz reported that settlers are fleeing towards Cyprus with the help of small yachts / vessels. Hashtag pray for Cyprus. Hashtag hopefully no one finds a scroll. Israel's defense minister openly signals intent to assassinate Iran's supreme leader. He cannot continue to exist. Barbarism? I can't ever spell. I can't spell. There you go. It's barbar. That's what I thought. Jesus Christ. Okay, anyway. Israel represents the turn toward barbarism. Either we stop Israel now, or we enter a dark period of death and destruction. Like, honestly, I don't know how else you even can phrase it or what you can even imagine is the right decision. Because do you want to live in a world where people are just getting like leaders are just being assassinated left and right? Does that sound like a good idea? Like, even in World War II, we didn't see this kind of shit. Like, this is actually depravity of the highest order. It's only a matter of time before chemical weapons and biological weapons are used. And look at the fascism of ICE. Everybody who said abolish ICE was completely and thoroughly proven right. Look at this shit. 80. Oh my God. This is insane. This is fucking insane. This is fucking insane. Okay, I'm going to try not to swear, and I'm going to try not to say no words, so it'll make it easier for the Clippers. Okay. This Washington Post poll was conducted via text messages June 18, 2025, among a random sample of 1,008 U.S. adults drawn from the SSRS opinion panel's text message panel. The sampling error is plus or minus 3.6 percentage points. At this time, would you support or oppose U.S. military launching airstrikes against Iran over its nuclear program? Support 25%, oppose 45%, unsure 30%. How serious a threat do you think Iran's nuclear program poses to the U.S.? 22 a serious threat, 48 a somewhat serious threat, 23 a minor threat, 7 a threat, not a threat. How concerned, if at all, are you with the possibility of the U.S. getting involved in a full-scale war with Iran? Very, 39, somewhat, 43. So 82% of Americans are concerned that we're going to enter a war with Iran. Like, it's absolutely stupid. And only 25% of Americans support joining it. So I guess there's people that support it and oppose, are concerned about it, but support it. So like 7% of people are really stupid. People do not want this. Where the fuck are the Democrats? Where the fuck are the Democrats? Should the United States be giving Israel weapons to make war with Iran? This isn't even different. This is different. This is not America. Should America enter the war? This is should America give weapons to Israel, which is even more of a step back from Israel. Democrats have been staying quiet for way too long. I don't get it because they support it. They support it and they know their voters don't. Okay, in case you don't understand this, Democratic Party elites support what Trump is doing, but they know their voters don't. So they remain silent because if they speak up, they know you'll be pissed. So demand they take a position now. Like, it's pathetic. This is what you get into politics for, to be a leader. Why do you even want to be in politics? Silence is 100% an endorsement. God damn it. Democratic politicians' job is not to listen to you. Their job is to force things you don't want down your throat at the behest of their corporate and foreign sponsors. Correct. Well, okay, let me clarify it a little bit. There are different types of people in the Democratic Party. Some of them really are good people. Some of them really are social democrats or progressives or democratic socialists. But they are not in control of what the levers of power in the Democratic Party. The levers of power in the Democratic Party are right-wing and corporate warmongers. And this is why I oppose the Democratic Party. However, if it turns out that we can take it over and the people in control are going to become good, I would support that. I'm not stupid. Look at Axios. This is from yesterday. Senate Democrats fracture as Trump considers Iran strike. So in other words, Democrats are supporting this? Who is doing it? Oh, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer decided against sponsoring a separate bill that Bernie Sanders introduced last week, barring funding for military force against Iran. Schumer had sponsored the same legislation in 2020. Weird. Just a few Senate Democrats have publicly backed Senator Tim Kaine's resolution to reassert Congress's authority over war powers. This is Hillary Clinton's VP, and they're leaving him alone. Some Senate Democrats like Sanders and Jack Reed slammed Israel's decision as reckless, but others like Schumer and Senator Jackie Rosen were less critical, affirming first and foremost Israel's right to defend itself. They're attacking, you fucking propagandist liars. They're attacking. They're not defending shit. Arguing Iran can never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. There, I'll say it. If you are in any way critical of the United States, you need a nuclear weapon. Behind the scenes, Schumer's position of staying off the Sanders resolution reflects a majority sentiment of the Democratic caucus. Many Democrats see the situation as a markedly different light than in 2020, when, they argue, Iran wasn't actively targeting Israel and threatening U.S. military bases. What changed? Israel attacked Iran, you dumb pieces of shit! And members have stressed the need to maintain flexibility over military operations. And this is my problem with the Democratic Party. And this has always been my problem with the Democratic Party. They are perfectly supportive of Donald Trump's warmongering. That is not acceptable. And we have got to change. And you can't be vote blue no matter who anymore. It's not viable. 2 Trump terms has got to prove to you that it's not viable. The dysfunction of New York and California has got to prove to you that it's not viable anymore. We need actual change. We need left-wing people in power. We can't do centrism anymore. We can't compromise with them anymore. We have to start a new party. Look at Mexico. Mexico started a populist left-wing party. It has an 85% approval rating. And you know what Claudia Sheinbaum just announced? They're going to build 1 million homes with interest-free mortgages for Mexican people. 1 million interest-free mortgages. If you could get an interest-free mortgage, that's oftentimes as much to 50% of what you pay in your mortgage payment. You'll save, your mortgage payment will go in half, would be cut in half. That's what's happening down in Mexico. They're standing up to Trump. They're building rail. They're building homes. And it has an 85% approval rating. And they just passed a constitutional amendment so that they could have direct election of their judges. We just had a 6-3 Supreme Court fiat, which declared it legal to ban trans healthcare. And so how can we help that? How can we affect that? We can't, because our judges are unelectable and unaccountable. But in Mexico, they're accountable to the people. We get abortion rights stripped away by the Supreme Court. We are powerless to stop it. Schumer has been in consultations with members on the unfolding situation. Sources tell Axios just 7 Democrats have signed on to Sanders' proposal. My favorite part of the broadcast is Mike reading a few sentences and yelling in frustration at misinformation. It's just a lie. It's a blatant lie. It's a blatant lie, and it's a provable lie. And notice that when I yell at centrists all fucking day, they never disagree with anything I say on the substance. It's always whining, bitching. Well, it's not realistic to actually want change. I don't know who buck broke you into believing that the world has to be shit, but it doesn't. The power to declare war. Just 7 Democrats have signed on to Sanders' proposal. Isn't this pathetic? Isn't this pathetic? The power to declare war rests solely with Congress, and Kaine and others want to assert that authority. And that's the dirty secret that Democrats don't want you to know. There is only a handful of actually progressive people aligned with the base of this country in the Democratic Party. That's why the Democratic Party has a 27% approval rating and declining, because people are finally waking up to the fact that it doesn't represent you. Even if you're just a liberal who wants incremental change, even if all you want is maybe a minimum wage increase, maybe it's easier to join a union, maybe I want peace and not war, maybe I want a public option in healthcare. The Democratic Party is against even that. You don't have a home in American politics. The power to declare war rests solely with Congress, and Kate and others want to assert that authority. The president does not have the authority to make this decision. There is no imminent threat to America from Iran, said Chris Murphy. He cannot take this action without congressional authorization. The administration needs to come to Congress immediately for a classified briefing on their strategy rather than tweeting our service members in the Middle East into graver danger. On the other side of the Capitol, a bipartisan coalition is starting to form around forcing a vote on authorizing military force in the conflict. Immediately, we need to force people to make a stand. What do I think about Kat? I think Kat is a progressive, but not anywhere near me. And I support her going to Congress, but I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. All right, let's watch this video from Chris Hayes talking about ICE fascism.
From New York, I'm Chris Hayes. The 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama, is back. The former president making a rare public appearance in Connecticut last night, telling the audience that the U.S. constitutional order is in real danger.
Oh, is that right? Wow, thanks, man. Hey, what did you do in 2020? Oh, yeah, you helped push a fucking geriatric, senile, incompetent who you knew couldn't handle the presidency into the job. You son of a bitch. You supported Emmanuel Macron. You supported Keir Starmer, and their politics have been a failure. When are you going to shut the fuck up?
We start drifting into something that is not consistent with American democracy. It is consistent with autocracies. We're not there yet completely, but I think that we are dangerously close to normalizing behavior like that.
And while former President Obama spoke, the current president was contemplating joining a new...
I think if you like Barack Obama at this point, you're dim. You're dim. And I think a lot of people are dim. You know, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the idea that a lot of people are actually dim. I'm okay with the idea of just accepting that people are not that aware. Mike, you're welcome. You're going to love this. How were Israelis treated to arriving in Cyprus?
To the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. To the sea, Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I fucking love it so much. Every time an Israeli plane touches down anywhere, there should be this chant with 100,000%.
Middle East war against Iran, all while American troops remain deployed here on his orders on U.S. soil in the state of California against the wishes of the state's governor. In fact, they are there, according to the Secretary of Homeland Security, to, quote, liberate the state from its elected leader. But there aren't even any disturbances on the streets there patrolling. You remember those Waymo cars that got burned? We all saw the images, right? That was a week and a half ago. Yet we still have 700 U.S. Marines and more than 4,000 National Guard soldiers deployed to America's second largest city. That is after Donald Trump ordered another 2,000 guardsmen to L.A. late last night. We'll see how much that's going to cost. That's even though the LAPD told reporters there had not been any arrests related to protests in the city since Saturday night. And it's not just California. Yesterday, the Pentagon also announced that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is mobilizing 700 troops to assist federal immigration officials in Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. Now, it seems pretty clear to me at this point that all this is to terrorize American citizens and non-citizens alike, and to transform the structure of American governance and our relationship to our own armed forces, to normalize federal occupiers with guns. Some identified, some not, some masked. People that can at any moment just arrest a sitting U.S. senator or a New York City controller, members of Congress, a mayor of Newark. Trump has always wanted to use American military force against Americans, at least as far back as back in 2020, famously during the George Floyd protests. But at the time, his defense secretary said, more or less, absolutely not. And a big part of the reason that Trump is doing it now, and it is happening now, they're still in California, right, is that he has this almost sort of comically pliable Secretary of Defense in former Fox Weekend host Pete Hegseth, a man who is just obviously palpably in over his head, but will do whatever Trump wants. Today, testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee, the man who oversees the largest and most lethal organization in the history of the United States answered serious concerns from senators with a deeply disturbing made-for-Fox shtick.
On Sunday night, the president threatened to deploy ICE agents to other cities around the country that he sees as, quote, the core of the Democrat power center, end quote, specifically mentioning Chicago and New York. Secretary Hegseth, if the president wanted to deploy Marines to Chicago and New York City like he did in Los Angeles, would you carry out that order even if the local governors and mayors objected?
Well, thankfully, New York City, unlike California, unlike Gavin Newsom, is willing to step up and address the issue with their local law enforcement.
I will take that as a yes. How about if the president says he wants to send troops to 15 cities? Would you be willing to do that?
Senator, I don't accept your hypothetical because it's
That's hypothetical.
Not a real
That's
one.
the question. You're the Secretary of Defense. Would you send troops to 15 cities if the president said do it? Would you do it? 15 cities.
Again, Senator, it's a complete hypothetical lacking any context at all.
It was not hypothetical. I mean, Senator Elizabeth Warren repeated that Donald Trump posted that he wanted to do that, and Hegseth refused to answer whether he would carry out such an order. And then it got worse, because Hegseth was also asked about the situation that his predecessor, Mark Esper, faced in 2020 when Trump wanted the military to crush protesters.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
The commander-in-chief was suggesting that the U.S. military shoot protesters.
Yes, in the streets of our nation's capital.
Remember that? Well, today, Pete Hegseth pretended it never happened.
Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God.
Now, as dangerous and sort of supercilious and glib and as that all seems, the military is just one part of what Trump is trying to do, right? Another part is this militarized federal police force. Those aren't active duty soldiers, but they're law enforcement officers, the federal government, who are indistinguishable visually from soldiers in their uniforms, and their weapons, their operations. And I want you to look at this. I don't know if people have seen this. I don't think it's gotten the attention it should. Here's what those kinds of operations look like when they're being deployed, not in a foreign war, not against some enemy of the United States, being deployed on the ground against us, against Americans, right? Our neighbors and communities. This is an open-air flea market in Los Angeles County, a flea market. The masked men carrying M16s in full camouflage battle rattle are not military service members. They are officers of ICE and the Border Patrol. They look like they're in a mission overseas. And they and their helicopters flying overhead executed a raid on, wait for it, the Santa Fe Springs swap meet on Saturday afternoon. The swap meet. They were there at the swap meet, hours before a Mexican-themed concert was set to begin. Now, the concert was canceled. Patrons and sellers scattered. The community and the market ground to a halt. One vendor said the masked armed agents were asking people where they were from in America. You're going to a swap meet and someone with an assault rifle and camouflage is asking you where you're from. If you think that has all the hallmarks of an authoritarian, un-American police state, wait till you see how the Border Patrol portrayed that same raid in a hype video posted on their official social media. Again, that was to go to a swap meet. Celebrating a militarized police force raiding and interrogating flea market patrons, asking where they're from, with guns and with masks. This is the kind of America that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are trying to impose, and what millions and millions who took to the streets this weekend are determined to resist.
Sorry about that.
Let me step back and let's talk regime change generally. I mentioned Syria. I also oppose the Iraq War. I think the Iraq War was a serious mistake. And we...
Oh my God. Yeah, I think Iraq War is a serious mistake. Yeah, now I'm going to do the Iran War. The right-wing dovishness is always a fraud.
Have a pattern, and going back to this binary of the interventionist and the isolationist.
My feeling on the... can I just comment quickly on the ICE thing? Which is, I need to take a moment to process that. Basically, these guys are enemies. They're domestic enemies. They're fascists. They're domestic enemies. It's a Nazi recruitment video. And I gotta say, what was flashing through my mind, I couldn't say.
The interventionists advocate over and over again. There's a bad guy. There's a dictator who's doing bad things to his people. And they say, let's go topple him. And you have dictators in the Middle East who are killing radical Islamic terrorists. We come in and topple them. The radical Islamic terrorists take over and they start killing Americans. In my view, how the heck does that help us? Saddam Hussein was a horrible human being. He murdered and tortured people. Unequivocally bad guy. But it got much worse after we toppled him. And you ended up having ISIS rise up. I mean, that was the cause of ISIS, was toppling Saddam Hussein. Same thing in Libya. You had Gaddafi, another horrible guy, that under Obama, we toppled him. And you ended up having radical Islamic warlords taking over. And so it's the question I asked in Syria. Okay, well, what's the plan? And how is this good or bad for the United States? And so I don't think with Iran, I view Iran as very different from Iraq.
But up to that point, you say we disagree. I don't hear really anything. I'm not quite sure what happened in Syria, but I don't know. So, right. But other than that, I don't hear anything I disagree with at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're in a complete agreement. I wonder, though, is there a successful regime change that the United States supported that you're aware of in the last 100 years?
Sure. Defeating the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union collapsing, winning the Cold War. That was the most consequential step for U.S. national security interests of our lifetimes.
Okay.
And
so you would classify that as a regime change that we affected?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Look, you and I are in my office. We're sitting next to a painting of Reagan in front of the Brandenburg Gate. And up top are the words, tear down this wall, in German, in the style of the graffiti.
Right.
And I think those are the most important words any leader has said in modern times. And if you look at how Reagan waged the Cold War, and Reagan is very much my model for how to, I actually think how Reagan took on the Soviet Union is exactly how we should take on China. Now, starting from the point, look, Reagan was not an interventionist. In 8 years, the biggest country Reagan ever invaded was Grenada. He was very reluctant to use U.S. military force.
He didn't respond.
He used illegal covert wars and it supported fascism abroad covertly. And he did get humiliated and had to retreat from terrorist attacks. But he liked to support fascists covertly.
Respond after the 83 barracks bombings.
You're right. Yeah, he made the judgment that the risk exceeded the benefits. And that's a very rational decision to make. And it's reflected. Trump has made those same decisions where he is willing to use military force, but he very much asks, okay, is this good or bad for America? Does this endanger U.S. servicemen and women or not? And one of the points about the Cold War, look, nobody in their right mind wanted a shooting war between America and the Soviet Union. The two biggest nuclear powers on Earth firing bullets at each other is really unhealthy for human beings. Same thing is true with China. Nobody with any sense says, hey, let's go to war with China. That's really dumb, and a whole lot of people could die. But the Cold War showed we've got lots of tools short of sending the Marines to fight against a regime. And one of the most important tools is the bully pulpit. And so when I say I support regime change, I actually think just simply laying out what the Ayatollah does. And so I spend a lot of time, I speak to Iranian dissident groups. I speak out against human rights abuses. I think shining a light on the depravity of leaders is a really powerful tool that America has.
Should we limit our activity to that?
It depends. Again,
because the U.S. government pays opposition groups, militarized opposition groups in Iran to overthrow the government. We've done it in a lot of different places, as you know. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's very different from what you're describing. You're saying we're making a moral case, as we did for 7 years with the Soviets. Our system works, yours doesn't.
Yep.
And I think we made a credible case for that, and we beat them over 70 years economically.
And that was a huge part of it.
Right. I think everyone would agree that was the main part of it. We didn't beat them in Vietnam or North Korea.
The main part of it, but it was tied to a military buildup. So I think it was two things. It was, one, the clarity. So Reagan came in, and he described the Soviet Union as an evil empire.
Right.
And all of the intelligentsia in D.C., all the Democrats, all the media, they're like, what a horrible thing to say. You can't say that. Reagan went to the United Kingdom and he said, Marxism, Leninism will end up on the ash heap of history. People were horrified.
Is it? Is it? Is it though?
They asked him, all right, what's your strategy in the Cold War? He said, very simple. We win, they lose.
Okay, we watched this part. It's very boring. I want to get to the part where they talk about Israel, because this is so fucking boring.
That's an example of peace through strength.
I wonder, I mean, is there anybody who was alive in 1989 who wouldn't trade that America for the one we live in now? There's not one person, I don't think.
Oh, sure.
But, I mean, just the basic metrics, debt, suicide rate, life expectancy, it was... I wonder why, after that victory, America didn't thrive in the way that we thought that it would, that I thought that it would. My family was involved in that. I mean, we were very focused on it in my house. Like, we won. And I wonder two things. Why didn't the United States kind of declare victory and make some sort of arrangement with Russia that allowed like mutual prosperity rather than continuing a Cold War? And second, I wonder why the United States didn't get a lot better. Like, why don't we have better infrastructure? Why don't we have fewer homeless? Why do we have all these drugs? Like, if we won, why does our country look like this? I walked across from Union Station this morning, as you do, I'm sure, every day. And all these people lying in the street and sleeping outside. It's like, what is that?
We're sorry to say it, but this is not...
Let's get to the Israel question. How much money is the U.S. sending Israel? Okay, there we go. This is what I wanted to show you, chat.
Happening to our country. The dollars spent, the aid packages to Ukraine to pay the retirement of civil servants in a country that we have nothing to do with, the endless support for Israel, very expensive. When people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States, can you feel like it's nothing against Ukraine or Israel or any other country?
All right, let's stop. You said the support for Israel very expensive. How much support do we give to Israel?
Well, you tell me. You vote for it.
Yeah, it's about $3 billion a year is the military assistance.
Is that the only assistance?
Yeah, we just have military assistance. Israel does not have additional assistance. There's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and it's $3 billion a year.
So what is it costing to support the bombing campaign to protect Israel right now?
They just sent 15 more billion. They just sent 15 more billion, and we've spent 330 billion on Israel so far.
Iran.
So I don't know right now, but
plus we're also spending our own military budget to directly do operations on Israel's behalf, which we don't count as aid to Israel. We count that as military expenditure. So the amount of money is hundreds of billions of dollars.
Tell you this, let's go back to the touchstone on foreign policy, American interest. Our support, our military support for Israel is massively in America's national security interest,
what does it cost?
It benefits us enormously.
Well, before we can make independent judgments about whether or not that's true, and I'm certainly open to it, I think we need to know what it costs. So what's the annual cost of defending Israel? Do you know?
$3 billion a year.
No, that's the aid. But I mean, the cost of the weapons, for example, the cost of U.S. personnel there, the cost of moving ships to the region, which we're doing right now, the cost of moving tankers to the region, all of that. Do we know what the cost is?
So look, the last week, I don't know. And there's some lag when the administration, under the Constitution, the commander-in-chief has control of the armed forces. And so President Trump has made some decisions that we'll know the cost over time. But
by the way, chat, I have to pause this for a second because apparently Brad Lander just stabbed Zohran in the back over this, like, ifitata, whatever the fuck, translation dispute. Hold on, does anyone have the link? Somebody was linking it to me earlier, and I thought I opened it, but apparently I didn't. But I just want to show you how I am completely right every time. I am completely right every single time.
You know, when I hear the phrase globalize the intifada, I say to people, I'm telling you, all I can hear right now is some Jews were killed in DC and there was a flamethrower in Boulder. And maybe you don't mean to be saying it's open season on Jews everywhere in the world, but that's what I hear.
That I fucking called it! Brad Lander is the warden of the New York City mayor's race. I don't care if he's done good things or you personally like him. He isn't going to win. It serves only to split progressive votes from Zohran. Anyone can't see this as either lying or trying to defeat Zohran. I was totally fucking right as usual. I was fucking right. And just like a Warren, when it was good timing, he stabbed him in the back. And the effect is what? To help Cuomo. I am always fucking right. I'm always fucking right. And I finally went up against my instincts yesterday. I finally said, okay, he cross-endorsed. So I guess he is wise. I said it this week. I guess he is wise. I was wrong. He isn't Elizabeth Warren. He's smart. And then he immediately makes me look like an asshole for trusting him. Immediately, I look like an asshole. I just posted this TikTok yesterday. This aged poorly.
I love Zohran so much.
Because Zohran Mandani refused to condemn calls to globalize the intifada during a podcast interview with The Bulwark released on Tuesday, arguing the phrase it is an expression of Palestinian rights. I said, okay, fine. I finally said, okay, you can put Brad Lander #2.
Zohran Mandani #1, Brad Lander #2. I don't care about the rest except don't rank Cuomo.
I am so fucking mad. I am so fucking mad that my instincts are always right. The moment I start going like, well, maybe other people, maybe Brad Lander, he's better than this. Maybe since he's not a scumbag. But the moment he could stab somebody's back in the back for Israel, he did. What a fucking loser. And this is my feeling about this TikTok. Delete. Fucking delete. Definitely offensive, painful, and harmful. Even among family and friends, we have told to hold people accountable to condemn and pronounce these words. Fuck you, scum. Fuck you, scum. Don't rank this loser. Incredible.
I don't know the last week. I don't have visibility on that. The annual cost is $3 billion. It's a 10-year memorandum of understanding, and that's the principal driver of the cost. But let me make a point. We get massive benefits from Israel. Israel shares the Mossad is one of the best intelligence sources on the planet. The enemies of Israel, the people who hate Israel, they all hate us. It's almost a perfect overlap. And so if we tried to recreate, if we're just trying to defend America, we tried to recreate the national security benefits of our alliance with Israel, it would cost, I don't know, $30 billion, $300 billion.
So can you elaborate? And again, I'm going into this as someone who's always liked Israel and still does. But I also think at this point, given where we are, it's fair to ask rational questions about what the benefits are.
Good.
So does Mossad share all of its intelligence with us?
Oh, probably not, but they share a lot. We don't share all of our intelligence with them, but we share a lot. It's a close alliance.
Do they spy domestically in the United States?
Oh, they probably do, and we do as well. And friends and allies spy on each other. And I assume all of our allies spy on us.
And that's okay with you?
You know what? One of the things about being a conservative is that you're not naive and utopian. You don't think humans are all... Part of the reason socialism doesn't work is the mantra from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs doesn't work. As a conservative, I assume people act in their...
It's so funny to say this because capitalism has no opinion on this. Capitalism is just, this guy owns stuff, so I guess he deserves all the profit. He owned a building because the government gave him a deed. I guess he deserves all the profit. And then his son deserves even more, and his grandson deserves any more. They never have to do anything but own shit. That is a good system.
Irrational self-interest.
So it's conservative to pay people to spy on you?
It's conservative to recognize that human beings act in their own self-interest, and every one of our friends spies on us. And I'm not...
Do you like it? That's my question. I'm not asking whether they have motive to do it. Of course they do. I understand that. And
by the way,
I'm not mad at them.
And the question, Israel spies on us. Well, so does every other country. Why are you mad at Israel?
I guess, no. I'm hardly the one who's... I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel...
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Great.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times, AIPAC, I wish were much more effective. Like, there are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC...
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No, not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
America has thousands of colleges and universities, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are basically just scam 2020 that teaches the president. I don't. I want to do just the truth. That's tuckerforhillsdale.com to enroll for free. When was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little...
Name one! Name one!
History. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC,
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive that gets...
No.
I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government. And I don't... It's not.
No.
It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Okay.
And by the way, chat, this kind of lawyer's dodge is why everybody hates these scum. Oh, yeah, it's not lobbying for Israel. It's lobbying that America give a lot of money to Israel. That's not lobbying for Israel. It's lobbying for America to give money to Israel. That's the sophist, it is sophistic. It is bullshit. It is a lawyer's dodge. It is horseshit to anybody with common sense. He's a scumbag. He's a liar. He's a freak.
So it's not has nothing to do with the foreign government.
It wants America and Israel to be closely allied.
Okay, but it's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country.
So that's not true at all. And if
it's not true.
No.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have with the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the government of Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC because AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure. Like if...
So I'm not mad about that. There are a million countries that lobby Washington. I like a lot of those countries, including Israel.
But AIPAC are Americans. They're not Israelis.
Hold on. There are tons of Americans who lobby on behalf of foreign governments. I know them. I'm related to some of them. I know how it works. I'm from here. So my question...
He has relatives who lobby for foreign states. Here's my feeling. Here's my feeling about foreign agents. I think foreign agents should not be able to leave a designated zone in the United States that's tightly controlled and monitored.
Is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah,
and
why
aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
They're not a foreign lobby.
No, they're not. And this is that there's a...
And they're not a foreign lobby. They just want to lobby American government to give a lot of money to a foreign government. That's not lobbying for a foreign government. Like, what if Israel didn't want the money, right? What if Israel was too proud to take American help? Can you imagine seeing an Israeli who was too proud to take American money and take American weapons and take American diplomatic protection and to take American military protection, because they're just such a proud people in Israel. The Israelis are just so proud. They could never take American help. They want to stand on their own 2 feet, right? So when AIPAC is lobbying for money for Israel, Israel is like, no, please don't shower us with billions of dollars of free money. Oh, God, stop giving us your most advanced weapons. Oh, stop protecting us in the United Nations with your veto on their security. Oh, God, please stop. We're so proud.
The fever swamp. Look,
it's not a fever swamp. These are very reasonable questions, and you've accused me of being obsessed with Israel, which I'm not.
I actually haven't. I've said
and of being feverish about it, which I'm not at all. I find it's a very tender spot when you ask it, and I don't know why.
So, Tucker, all right, let's go back. I was first elected to the Senate in 2012. I came in Obama's second term, and I actually saw AIPAC be badly wounded in a way they never came back from. And the second term is when Obama did the Iran nuclear deal. And the Iran nuclear deal, I think, was catastrophic. And AIPAC went all in lobbying against it.
Yeah.
And they failed. And I was the leading opponent of the Iran nuclear deal.
Oh, I know. They definitely failed, yes.
They failed. And what happened, the Obama White House told every Democrat, when I got here, there used to be real bipartisan support for Israel. That has largely disappeared. And it's the Obama nuclear deal that caused it, because the Obama White House told every Democrat, pick. You either stand with Israel or you're a Democrat and you stand with the Obama White House. And almost every single Democrat member of Congress said, I'm a Democrat first, to hell with Israel. And then I watched as AIPAC, every one of those Democrats got reelected and AIPAC did nothing about it. And it dramatically reduced AIPAC's influence.
I agree. I watched it happen.
And by the way, I told AIPAC, I said, look, the analogy, if the NRA was supporting a bunch of politicians and cared about the Second Amendment, and you had politicians that vote to confiscate people's guns, and the NRA turned around and raised money for the people who voted to confiscate guns, you know what? No one would ever care what they said again.
So you're making the case that AIPAC is not as powerful as people say it is, and I completely agree with you. I've watched that, and I'm not making the case that AIPAC is all powerful and they're running everything and putting fluoride in the water. I'm not making that case at all, because that's not true. I'm only trying to get to the question of what AIPAC is, and I don't think you're being straightforward about it. AIPAC is...
I think fundamentally people don't understand the argument, which is they don't understand politics from the perspective of a politician. And I do, which is why my analysis is better than everyone else's. And I hate to say it so bluntly, but I'm going to explain why that is. When you're a politician, you are trying to raise money and get outside support for your campaign, because the number one issue you have is you're not a celebrity. And you don't have good name recognition, and people don't know what you think. So in order to win, you have to have your ideas and your messaging be predominant over your opposition. And if somebody comes to you and says, hey, this is a country thousands of miles away, but we've got a lot of really passionate supporters of that country, and they'll pour millions of dollars into your campaign and will spend millions of dollars against your opponent, but all you have to do is sign on to a couple bills in Congress to give this country money from the government. Will you do that? Or else politicians go along with it. So is that AIPAC controlling everything? No, AIPAC is not controlling everything, but AIPAC is controlling America's position toward Israel. AIPAC's position on Israel is America's position because the politicians are bribed and there isn't a sufficient organized counterforce. There's nobody that's a threat. For example, in the Democratic Party, if you're anti-union, then unions will kick your ass. Now, there is anti-union organizations around the country that will support you, but there's also a counterbalance. So if you decide to be anti-union, well, then you're going to have the unions against you, which is not definitive. The unions don't control everything, but when you make a position against unions, you're going to have union opposition. But if you take a position against Israel, nobody's coming to your rescue. There's no groups giving you money. There's no groups campaigning for you. You now have to take strikes from other places to try to fight against the Israeli lobby that's going to come after you. So politicians who might be neutral or might have some ability to reckon that what Israel is doing is wrong, understand that if I stand up to Israel, I'm going to have to find countervailing strength elsewhere that's comfortable with fighting the AIPAC lobby. And 99% or 90% of politicians are not willing to do that, no matter what Israel is doing, including and up to genocide. And so it's our job as the anti-Israel groups to form our own counterbalance. And that involves bringing voters. That involves bringing volunteers. That's what we need. We need an anti-AIPAC. We need an anti-Israel lobby group. If you want to change, politicians' fucking views, they have to start losing elections because of their position on Israel.
Lobbying on behalf of the interests of a foreign country, and they're not registered. And you're saying, no, that's not true. You're saying that they don't coordinate with the Israeli government.
Of course, I coordinate. Do they talk with them? I don't know what they do. I can tell you.
But why don't you care? Isn't it meaningful if a...
By the way, chat, if you enjoyed this content, we are 3 hours into the stream. We've had a pretty smoking hot support this week. So I don't expect big gifties or whatever, but if you do enjoy the stream and you want to support my content, and if you want to help build that organization, if you really want to go build an anti-AIPAC, then this is the place where it's going to get started. So please consider supporting the stream by subscribing, tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can attach that to your Twitch account. If you're new to Twitch, make sure you have your Amazon account linked, and you can give a free Prime sub to one streamer a month. Absolutely costs you nothing. Takes $2.50 out of Jeff Bezos' pocket, puts it into mine. I really would appreciate it, and it gets some more value for your Prime. Trump has been briefed on both the risks and benefits of bombing Fordo, Iran's most heavily secured nuclear facility, and his mindset is that disabling it is necessary because of the weapons being produced in a relatively short period of time, sources say. Trump is aware of the diplomatic effort being undertaken with EU officials meeting with the Iranian foreign minister in Switzerland on Friday. John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, has said in closed-door settings that Iran is viewed as being close to possessing nuclear weapons. No evidence. Despite the official lie from the intelligence community that Iran's leadership hasn't given a formal order to build bombs, according to multiple sources. Ratcliffe has said claiming Iran isn't close would be similar to saying football players who have fought their way to the 1-yard line don't want to score a touchdown. So in other words, there's no evidence whatsoever. I just saw your YouTube short on Mandani. Oh no, I deleted it from TikTok. I literally deleted it from TikTok because fuck Brad Lander. Reports pop up that 2 Chinese warships, including a radio electronic reconnaissance ship, have entered the Persian Gulf. Is this true? We need a better sources than these. Revealing the hardest evidence would reveal sources. Oh, so they could just say whatever they want? You trust the American government, you dumb fuck?
Foreign government.
Hey, I talk with Israel all the time. I talk with foreign countries all the time.
But the law is, and a lot of people have been prosecuted under this law, that if you are
explain Brad Lander, a Warrenite liberal,
being on behalf of foreign government, you must register. That's it.
It's
really
Israel supporter.
Simple. And I don't know why, if I'm working for Malaysia or Qatar or Belgium, and I'm working on behalf of its government's interests through a group of Americans who are representing the friendship between those two nations, I have to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And if I don't, I can go to jail. And people have gone to jail, including people I know. Okay. So I don't understand why we don't just be honest and say they're lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. They're coordinating with the government. You know that that's true.
That is not only not true, that is false.
They're not coordinating with the Israeli government?
Do you know how AIPAC raises money? What? For elected officials, like what they do, like what the act.
Marble Honey, thank you for the 10 tier 1s. Thank you for at least supporting the stream. We have a hype train going on, chat. We are dangerously close to 9,000 subs. We're at 8711. And it would really piss Ethan Klein off if you were to subscribe. That's all I know. Because if we break the 9,000, ceiling, Ethan Klein would be forced to acknowledge my incredible success, like he has in the past. Mike. Hold on. This is so funny. Hold on. Look. My favorite thing ever made by Clips from PA is this.
Mike from PA, to me, is a full-on grifter. One day I'm going to do a video on this guy. He is the most pathetic.
By the way, has Ethan Klein released his new video yet?
Dipshit on all of Twitch, and just to show you how easy this grift is, this guy is like relatively successful, and he is like not talented, he is vile, and he is cringe as fuck. What's his average view?
Ethan Klein calling people cringe and vile. Hammond Fist, thank you for the 20 bomb. Let's go. No such thing, the 10. Let's fucking go. Guys, make sure you pay for your own sub. If you watch my stream more than once and twice a week, you should be subscribed. Like, don't fucking let people gift you subs. If you're in here for hours every fucking month, that's fucked up. Pay for your own shit if you can afford it. Let the gifts go to the people that can afford it. Hey, loser, make some merch. I am. I'm trying to find a union print shop with Made in America blanks. I'm literally working on it. It's very hard. If I only cared about printing and I didn't care where the blanks were made, I could probably get it done faster. But I also want to make sure that I get Made in America blanks as well. But we'll see. We'll see what we end up happening. At the very least, there's going to be union printing. That's like the bare minimum for what I consider acceptable. Hassan uses Bayside. Message me that. Message me. What's Bayside? Is it Bayside printing? Bayside printing? Is it these people? Or is it something else? Bayside Textiles? I'll have to, you know, somebody give me information. Anyway, we need to make fun of Ethan Klein. Hold on.
Do you count?
Probably like a couple K.
Couple K?
Does he really get a couple K?
Nice. And somehow he still succeeded. You know? He has 7,000 members or something. Every time I see that number, I'm like, whoa. I'm happy to say that his sub count is getting lower.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's closer to 8,000 before. I mean, every time I look, he has between 7,000 and 8,000 paying members, which is pretty disturbing, but it is what
So what I'm trying to say, chat, is if we break the 9,000 threshold, Ethan Klein will be even more disturbed. And the thing that's really awesome is I barely talk about him now just to make fun of him, to shill. But like, he's not even really that important. He just helped me grow. And now we talk about politics and shit all day. It's not like people were here for the drama. They came here because he attacked me and then they stayed. Thank you, Ethan Klein.
it is.
Like, I gotta be honest, I don't even notice when Ethan Klein talks about me. I legitimately don't notice. Somebody has to tell me.
Mike from PA. 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 Mike from PA.
Mike from PA.
Mike from PA. Mike from PA. Mike from PA. Mike from PA.
Mike from PA.
Mike from PA.
Look how depressed AB was saying Mike from PA. Because he knows I was completely right about
from PA.
Notice how I was completely right about Brandlander early. Notice that I was completely right about AB, but early. Notice how I was completely right about Bo, the Fifth Column, and Vosh, and Destiny, and all these scumbags. Remember how I was completely right, and so many people got mad at me for being correct? And now all of it is just accepted that those people are shit. But a lot of people who are mad at me from calling those people out still are mad at me. And it's like, wait a minute. You agree that I was right, but you were mad that I was first? Why don't you just apologize? Why don't you just go, you know what, Mike? You were right. I'm sorry I yelled at you. I'm sorry I disagreed. I called you a white boy or whatever the fuck. Because I made fun of AB. Can you imagine siding with AB now? Why don't I run ads? Because I don't need to. Because I don't need to. I mean, I could. It could probably get me a few $1,000 more a month. Should I do that? Do you guys really want to see ads every hour? Let's see 4 minutes of ads an hour. Is that your fantasy? You want more ads? Now, the ads would not be to people that are subscribed. I always turn my ads to be the least intrusive they can be. But I probably could get a few $1,000 more out of it per month. The New York Post did another hit piece on Hassan. Twitch streamer Hassan Piker is pushing Gen Z boys to the extreme left with twisted views on Israel 9/11. This is why I'm so happy to be as famous as I am, which is I do really well as a niche micro celebrity for socialists online, but I also don't have to deal with this bullshit constantly. It's fucking great. So awesome. All right, let's go back to making fun of Ted Cruz.
Actual mechanics is?
I mean, they go to people who are sympathetic to Israel and raise money and then send it to candidates who agree with them.
So what they'll do is, in my last election, AIPAC endorsed me. And they'll host a fundraiser. And they'll host a fundraiser in Dallas or Houston or Atlanta or New York or LA. And they'll do a fundraiser and they'll get someone who will host it. And it's usually a business owner, lawyer, doctor, or someone who hosts it. And you get typically at an AIPAC fundraiser 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 people who live in that city,
right?
Who care about a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. Yeah. And if they have, 50 people, each of them writes a $1,000 check, and you raise $50,000.
Yeah, I've been to an AIPAC fundraiser. Okay. I know what it looks like.
But that is not. And by the way, there's no representative of the Israeli government there. You have when you're in Dallas, you're meeting
such a
with
false and silly conversation. I know all this. The question is are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government to any extent?
Okay, that's
a really
different
simple
from
question.
lobbying on behalf of.
It's a simple question. Are AIPAC's goals shaped by the goals of the Israeli government? And I'm just going to ask you that question straightforwardly. And if you say no, I think we both know that's not true.
Hey, are they shaped by?
Are they coordinating with the Israeli government?
Are they talking with them? Yes.
The Israeli
Is Israel
government
directing them? You want to talk about FARA? The law on lobbying on behalf of someone.
Yeah.
It is, I hire you and you lobby on behalf of me. I direct you. Does Israel direct AIPAC? No, they're not lobbying on behalf of them. Do they care about them? Yes, but...
Or do you think that it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody. I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question: what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On behalf not simply of myself, but on my many.
Look how immediately, if you ask any questions about Israel's lobby system, you're immediately called anti-Semitic.
Jewish friends who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking
and by the way, you're the one.
That's Israel's government's influence over our government. That's not the Jews. You fucking coward.
That just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran or the Ayatollah.
If I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel. I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period. Okay. Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from. So that's my position. That does not make me an anti-Semite. And shame on you for suggesting otherwise. And I mean that. And that's low, and you know it's low. So why don't you just answer my questions
I'll
in a straightforward, rational way? You certainly have the IQ to do it.
So, shame on you is cute, by the way, Tucker.
It is. It's not cute. I'm offended. I'm obsessed with the Jews. You just told me
you just called me a sleazy feline.
It is sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite for asking questions about how my government is run.
Do you want to count how many questions you asked about? What about the Jews? What about Israel? What about AIPAC?
I never asked about the Jews. This has nothing to do with the Jews, whatever that means. This has to do with a foreign government. And once again, shame on you for conflating the two. They have nothing to do with each other. I'm talking about the influence
Israel
of
and Jews have nothing to do with each other?
All Jews, or an attack on all Jews, which I am not, nor would I ever be undertaking now. I'm not attacking anybody.
By the way, that's who Iran wants to kill, is all the Jews and all the Americans.
And
Okay, first of all, that's not even true. Like the caricature of Iran as some sort of like genocidal machines is just batshit fucking crazy. Iranians love Americans. There is an Iranian government that is a conservative theocratic government that happened because we had a fucking dictator that was doing secret police murders on anybody who criticized that government, and led to a revolution. And guess what? In the post-revolutional power struggle, the right-wing faction prevailed, because it was the one that was least suppressed by the fascist government that we supported. So it was in the best position materially to struggle for power. But the opposition to America by Iran is because of America's interference and our destruction of their own democracy.
Totally opposed to that, okay? But now, because
except you don't want to do anything about it,
decisions need to be made.
We can talk about those decisions.
And I plan to.
Good.
But I just want to get a sense of whether you think, having described yourself as an America First person who's only
criterion for judgment on foreign policy is America's national interest, to what extent you're influenced by a foreign government, which gives you a lot of money through its lobby. And you're claiming this has nothing to do with the foreign government. They're not coordinating. Yes, they're spying on us, but it doesn't bother you. And I'm sort of wondering, like, what is this? This is one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had.
I'll tell you what, and I'll answer any question you like, but let's try to...
Are you going to call me an anti-Semite again or no?
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little.
You're the one who went to motive. I'm asking honest questions.
I'm
just asking questions. Yes, that's it. That is what I'm doing.
Let's try to ratchet down the temperature a little bit.
Okay. Picture the house of your dreams. Maybe it's got an out.
God, the amount of ads the right-wing grifters have, the amount of ads they get is crazy.
To support veterans and to switch to America's company, wireless from Pure Talk.
And did you ever see an Eddie Murphy movie called The Distinguished Gentleman?
No.
It's a great movie. It's actually a fun comedy about politics. And Eddie Murphy in the movie is a con man who gets elected to Congress. And he's literally a con man who, the congressman dies, he has the same name, and so he runs and they get elected. And there's a scene in the movie where Eddie Murphy is a freshman member of Congress, and he's sitting down with a sleazy lobbyist. And he's asking the lobbyist, all right, what should my positions be on, I think they were talking about power plants and electrical transmission lines. And the lobbyist's like, well, what do you believe? And Eddie Murphy's the con man said, I don't care. Whatever gets me the most money. I'll do whatever gets me the most money. And the lobbyist says, no, pick a side. Doesn't matter what you pick. If you pick one side, we'll go shake down everyone who supports that side and they'll give you money. If you pick the other side, that's fine. We'll just go to the other side and shake down that. That's a little bit the way it works.
That's not how it works. That is bullshit. That is for some positions, there is some parity, but on most positions, there is not. Like abortion, there's a lot of money on both sides. Gun control, there's a lot of money on both sides. But a lot of issues are incredibly one-sided. That's why the Republicans like the system, because they get 70-30 of the money from corporations. So it's a perpetual advantage for siding with capital. This is just horseshit.
Works. And you often get leftists in the media who say, for example, if you support the Second Amendment, as you do and I do, well, you're just bought and paid for by the NRA. And that actually is backwards. I believe in the Second Amendment because I believe in the Constitution. Now, am I proud that the NRA supports me? Sure, because people who care about the Second Amendment want to support leaders who fight for it. But it gets it backward. Look, AIPAC, when I ran for the Senate, AIPAC didn't support me. I supported Israel before they supported me. I'm happy to have their support because they share my objective.
No, but you're missing it. I'm not suggesting that you're bought and paid for. I'm not saying that.
I want to go back and take
sincere.
I want to go back and take the transcript because you just said a minute ago, I'm slightly paraphrasing, but are you lobbying for a foreign government because they pay you a lot of money? That's basically what you said. So you are suggesting that.
Let me just be clear about what I think. Your views seem totally sincere.
Yes.
You take money from people who agree with you.
Yeah.
I believe that. I
even take money from people who disagree with me.
I'm only trying to get to the question of to what extent is the U.S. government influenced by other governments? And it's a lot.
Of course.
It's hardly just Israel. It's hardly just Israel. I don't think Israel's the main one. There are lots of governments. China is a massive influence on this city.
And it's a huge problem.
As you know, I couldn't agree more. And there are lots of other. The UK, which is a truly sinister place, in my opinion. Ethnic Brit, I can say. I think that's my view. Maybe you disagree.
I think they're on the wrong path. I love the Brits, but their government has gone off the rails.
Without even getting into that. I'm just saying I don't think Israel's the only one. But it's the only one where you're instantly called an anti-Semite for asking questions. And it's also the only government that no one will ever criticize. And
people criticize Israel every minute of every day. Like the only government that people will not criticize, Rashida Tlaib just tweeted out calling Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal.
Rashida Tlaib? No.
You said no one will criticize.
No, I'm talking about Republicans that I would vote for, including you. And I'm saying, whatever. I don't even like talking about Israel.
Rashida Tlaib literally got censured by the House.
Care about, I never do, because it's not worth being called anti-Semites from AIPAC recipients. But now we're on the verge of joining a war, and I just want to be clear about why we're doing this.
All right, so, and let's get into Iran momentarily, but you suggested it was a strange thing that I said a minute ago that when I came into the Senate, I resolved that I was going to be the leading defender of Israel. And what you didn't ask is why. So let me tell you why.
No, you said I was obsessed with Israel, and you had just told me that your driving motive to get to the Senate was to defend Israel. I'm like, I don't think I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel.
Okay,
so
Tucker, words matter.
Uh-huh.
And you know that. I said I resolved to be the leading defender of Israel, and you said your driving motive, the reason you're in the Senate.
You want to be the leading defender of Israel. I would think if I ran for Senate, I'd be like, there are people dying of drug ODs on the street.
My driving motive is to fight for Texas and America, and to fight for jobs, and to fight for the Constitution. And you played a very, very careful word game of eliding.
You're the one who said it, not me.
So you still haven't asked why, but I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
And the reason is twofold. Number one, as a Christian, growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. That's in the Bible.
That's not what it says.
As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my...
It does not say that. It doesn't say that. Also, do you think that God talking 5,000 years ago, which is already a... Come on. Talking about Abraham's descendants is the same thing as Benjamin Netanyahu? That's fundamentalist claptrap.
You pull out the phone and use the...
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel...
I saw a good video from a Bible scholar on this.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed.
All right, let's see it.
And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
So in other words, he's only supporting Israel out of personal greed and venality. What a fucking scumbag.
Those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel.
No, it doesn't. This is where God is talking to Abraham in Genesis 12, and here is the Hebrew of the relevant passage where God says, "And I will bless the blessers of you, and the cursers of you I will curse, so that all the tribes of the earth or of the land may be blessed by or through you," where Bacha uses the instrumental bait preposition, where this refers to the means or the instrument of achieving that purpose clause, namely the blessing of all the tribes of the earth. So this is talking about Abraham and Abraham's offspring. Now, the reader of Genesis would understand the primary offspring of Abraham to be the nation of Israel. However, the nation of Israel did not necessarily refer to the territory of Israel. It was more commonly used to refer to the people of Israel, which we know ever since the 8th and late 7th and early 6th centuries BCE have been scattered around the world. So this is a reference to the people of Israel who are not all located within the modern day political entity known as the state or the nation of Israel. So this is talking about the people of Israel, not the modern nation state of Israel.
So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
No, what you believe is the interpretation that serves your identity politics.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the...
It's in Genesis. So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from?
However you rationalize it, fundamentally, you support the state of Israel because you know that that is an identity marker, that is a credence that you are required to endorse in order to access the power and resources that are provided by your membership in those social identities that are important to you.
Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel.
You can certainly negotiate such a command into the Bible if you need to, but that is negotiating the command into the Bible because you need to.
But number two...
Hold on. Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what... Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is?
So the word Israel in the Bible can actually refer to different things. And there is also diachronic change. Originally, this was a secondary name of Jacob, the legendary eponymous father of the 12 tribes of Israel, themselves the legendary origin of the people of Israel, as a reference to a people group who occupied a region or territory that could also be known as Israel. If you'd like a good discussion of how the concepts of Israel developed and how they are much later traditions that are trying to renegotiate their received heritage, I would recommend Andrew Tobolowsky's The Myth of the 12 Tribes of Israel, as well as Jason Staples' book, The Idea of Israel in Second Temple Judaism.
That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the descendants
God's
of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right
Yes.
now?
Obviously, it doesn't refer to the modern state because the author of Genesis 12 had no concept of any nation of Israel from any time after probably the second half of the first millennium BCE. So this is obviously a pretty petty and naive attempt to try to negotiate into the Bible a requirement or an expectation that Christians support the modern nation state of Israel. This is pretty bad form on the part of a senator, but we rarely ever see good form from Senator Ted Cruz. And the fit for this video is Has Been Hotel.
Okay, chat. This is what they want.
As President Trump waits.
This is what they want the United States to do. Drop bombs on Israel.
U.S. involvement in strikes on Iran, experts say a massive bunker buster bomb is likely the only weapon capable of destroying a key Iranian nuclear facility. But as CNN's Brian Todd reports, even this massive bomb may not be able to penetrate Iran's Fordo fuel enrichment plant, which is carved into a mountain and extends deep underground.
It's a sophisticated, frightening piece of weaponry designed to hit targets like some of Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities deep underground.
They're buried so deep, and no other bomb would be able to certainly destroy them.
The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, also known as the Bunker Buster, the largest non-nuclear bomb in the U.S. military's arsenal. Designed, the Air Force says, to reach and destroy weapons of mass destruction in well-protected facilities. The Bunker Buster is roughly 20 feet long, weighs 30,000 pounds, with 6,000 pounds of high explosives. The Israelis don't have them, nor the means to deliver them. Only the U.S. does, and there is no public record that they've ever been used in combat.
The United States has never encountered a target that required a bomb of this size. We have other very, very large bombs, such as the Moab, which is the mother of all bombs, as they say.
That mother of all bombs, weighing more than 21,000 pounds, was dropped by U.S. forces on ISIS targets in Afghanistan in 2017. But the Bunker Buster, even heavier. Experts say the Bunker Buster has a thick, hard shell designed to withstand the impacts of the ground and plunge to the depths it needs to reach, with explosives in a fuse that also needs to be robust enough to penetrate the ground. The Bunker Buster doesn't have the biggest blast area, experts say, because it's designed to burrow into the ground before exploding. The only plane that can carry the Bunker Buster, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, flown by a two-pilot crew, capable of flying about 6,000 nautical miles without refueling and eluding an enemy's most sophisticated defenses. The likely target of the Bunker Buster, if the U.S. were to get involved in this conflict, Fordo, an Iranian nuclear enrichment site buried deep under a mountain beneath possibly 300 feet of rock. A key question, could the Bunker Buster really damage Fordo significantly? Experts say the Bunker Buster can penetrate about 200 feet into the ground, maybe more. But if the key targets at Fordo are about 300 feet under?
One bomb isn't going to penetrate that. You're going to have multiple hits at the same spot. Drop a bomb, another B-2 comes in, drops another bomb in the crater of the first.
Another key question is, would a strike on the Fordo nuclear facility cause a large radiation leak? 3 experts who spoke to CNN say a radiation leak would probably be limited to the immediate area, and a strike would probably not pose the same kind of catastrophic consequences that bombing a nuclear reactor would. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
Earlier, I spoke with Jennifer Kavanagh, a senior fellow and director of military analysis at the foreign policy think tank Defense Priorities. I asked her what U.S. involvement in this conflict could actually mean.
So I think it's probable that Netanyahu was hoping that if he started this war and was successful initially, tactically against regime targets and other nuclear facilities, that the United States...
What is this? Vio made me... It appears to be a beef bulgogi with, like, there's savory pancakes and egg. Look at that, chat. What the hell? What the hell? And watermelon. Wow. Thank you, Vio. Vio's been feeding me, chat, and I'm only eating when Vio feeds me, and it's just, I'm melting off. The weight is melting off. It's just melting off. It's working so well. I don't eat any crap. Only Vio food. Thanks, Vio.
Tactically against regime targets and other nuclear facilities, that the United States would see this as an opportunity to join in and to...
Is there a federal state law that prohibits boycotting the U.S. government? Is it legal for Americans to avoid American products? Of course you can.
Accomplish what has been a long time.
I hit 30 pounds weight loss. I think I'm down 25 pounds from my absolute peak.
U.S. goal of ending the Iranian nuclear program. I think it's important to know.
I need to do another, like, I'd say like 10 to 15 to be to my goal weight, and I need another like 6 to be healthy. I'm almost there. I'm almost there. I think my BMI is like a 25 or 26 right now. So a little bit over, but I'm doing it without, you know, pharmacological assistance. So we're going to do it the old fashioned way of just not eating.
That there's no guarantee that even if the United States does use these bunker buster bombs, it would finally eliminate Iran's enrichment capabilities or forever end its pathway to a nuclear bomb. That can only be accomplished by political means, not military means.
It's interesting you say that because Joe Sirioni, who is an expert on nuclear non-proliferation and all things Iran and all things nuclear program in Iran, he explained how these bunker busters actually work in any kind of attack on the Fordo nuclear site there in Iran. Here he is. Listen to this.
The first aircraft, a B-2 rather, is the only aircraft that can carry this munition, has to drop one in a precise location, followed by another B-2 who would drop another in the crater. And that might not be enough, so you might have to do it a third or a fourth time.
So, you know, in the words of, you know, the U.S. intelligence CIA boss from back in the Iraq days, it's not a slam dunk that U.S. involvement here would actually destroy the Fordo nuclear site completely.
Certainly not with airstrikes. There would have to be a ground component, some kind of ground raid, to ensure that that facility was fully eliminated and that Iran's stockpiles of highly enriched uranium were either rendered unusable or inaccessible. And right now, no one is talking seriously about sending ground forces. So if we're relying only on air power, the chances are quite high that even with U.S. involvement, it would be impossible to achieve what Israel has set out as its strategic objective of eliminating, finally, this nuclear capability. And even if it was successful, if they were able to take out the facility and other facilities completely, there's still the matter of Iran's intellectual property. They figured this out once. They can figure it out again. The program might be delayed several years, even a decade. But it's only through political means and diplomacy that the challenge of Iran's nuclear weapons can be dealt with in a final and lasting way.
The Israeli military says its jets attacked the nuclear facility at Iraq, which it says Iran could have used to try to develop nuclear weapons. An Iranian state news agency says no major damage was done. I want to bring in our international security editor, Nick Payton-Walsh, joining me now. Nick, this attack was during a series of raids overnight. We've seen the evidence that at least the ballistic weapons capability still exists in Iran. We've seen the evidence of that where Nick is, in Beersheba, in Israel. So there are still military and nuclear targets, one assumes, for the IDF. From those that you're speaking to in your sources,
imagine a B-2 being shot down. It's not out of the question. The B-2 is not a fast-moving jet. It relies on stealth. It is plausible that it gets shot down or it crashes. Like, it is an incredibly dangerous move.
From Israel, Iran, particularly based on the latest rhetoric from Israeli officials, including the defense minister.
Look, I think the defense minister's comments will raise again the issue of the decapitation of the Iranian government. But I should just put in some context there that even if they did take the extraordinary decision or have the capability to kill the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, that doesn't suddenly spell an overnight end to the theocratic government of the Ayatollahs there. That he will be replaced possibly by his son, who appears to be doing some of the work already. And so it isn't a dictatorship in which the disappearance of one individual means everything crumbles. It's not Syria's Assad's Syria. And so I think it's important to put any move like that within that kind of context. It may well indeed exacerbate or, speaking to some experts yesterday, worsen the hardline nature of what Iran seeks. But it's the nature of the targets that Israel is openly talking about striking now that gives you some idea how far down their target list they necessarily are. Hitting the Arak heavy water facility, look, that's something which many experts believe was no longer involved in any potential chase of a nuclear weapon. Yes, it could have been involved in the creation of plutonium, giving another path toward the bomb, but ultimately it seems to have been inactive. So the Israelis working through potentially parts of nuclear infrastructure, people accept, are not actually a potential imminent usable threat right now, potentially removing things that could be a problem down the line and removing Iran's ability to pursue anything nuclear for decades. They appear also too to have destroyed between a half and about 2/3 of Iran's missile launchers. So that takes out of the equation potentially the scale of the volleys that Iran can fire at Israel. What got through last night may have been a new type of device, may have been a particularly bad night for Israel's air defences. Injured at that hospital certainly too, and horrific scenes for the Israeli public to endure, but not a marked change in the sort of lethal casualties Iran was able to inflict on Israel. So Iran clearly working with a much reduced military capability here, and so that puts into question how long, frankly, Tehran can have this conflict go on and not potentially experience some kind of existential crisis in its missile inventories, military infrastructure that keeps being hit like this, and its political command. Becky, I should point out, in a week since this began, they're now on their third commander of the IRGC's ground forces, the Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's the pace in which new leaders are being taken out. Unimaginable, frankly, just a month ago. And so I think many eyes now look towards tomorrow and Geneva, where the European Union's E3, as they're known, UK, France and Germany, along with the EU foreign policy chief, are meeting with Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi. Now, that may well be something which is an entire separate sideline. I was speaking to one Western diplomat who knows what's going on in those talks and said that they'd be happening in consultation with the United States. Indeed, David Lammy, the UK Foreign Secretary, I think, is meeting with Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, just today, but described the talks as something which would be used to kind of feel the room and work out indeed what is possible. But I think it's possibly diplomacy here, however bad the deal Iran has to accede to is, that give them possibly a chance of slowing the Israeli onslaught, but ultimately with Israel having control of the skies over Iran and the ability to hit what it wants at will, why would they necessarily stop now? I think the weakness of Iran is what's going to, the dynamic that's going to dictate the duration of this.
Nick Payne-Walsh is our chief security editor out of London for you today. Nick, thank you.
Oh boy. I ultimately, this is the reality. This is the reality. We are facing a situation of moral decrepitude in the West.
It was not enough for Sean Hannity himself to monologue about how there was really only one option to deal with this war that Israel has started with Iran, and that's for the United States to bomb more. Here is Mark Levin, and is this on the this is on Levin's show, right? Or is this on his yeah, this is, I think this is on Hannity. So Hannity invites Levin on to also reiterate what Hannity had said, but take it a little further. This is the
old friends from the Iraq War.
Oh yes,
This is where we get the diversity of ideas.
These guys are actually very close friends with each other. Levin worked in Ronald Reagan's Office of Legal Counsel. And then went on to do a talk radio career. And so he considers himself a constitutional American. Constitution, incidentally, Congress is supposed to declare war and allow for even kinetic energy. Go ahead.
But we don't care about the Constitution. We don't care about any of that. It's all smoke and mirrors to trick dummies. The only thing that matters is power, and if you get your policies enacted. And anybody who tells you, oh, I really want to do that, but the Constitution is binding my hands, is taking you for a rube.
Gee, and we have morons, fools running around the country. This isn't Magna. Magna? This isn't Magna. This isn't what I voted for.
Pause it. Did those fools, idiots, really say this isn't Magna?
This isn't Magna.
Actually change the name of the movement?
This is not Make America Not Great Again? Magna.
Yeah.
I got it wrong.
Yeah. No, you did. No, Magna.
Make America
not
great
again.
Yeah.
Make America great, not again.
Perfect.
Gee, and we have morons, fools running around the country. This isn't Magna.
Magna?
This isn't Magna. This isn't what I voted for. Donald Trump is a forever war president. How so? He's going to do what every president before him since Carter didn't have the guts to do. He's going to put an end to this damn thing. And that's what needs to happen. That's not a warmonger. That's a peacemaker. That is a man who's going to make sure this generation and future generations are protected from...
It's not a warmonger to start a war. Again, every accusation from conservatives is actually a confession. Orwell's 1984 dripping from their mouths.
Nuclear missiles coming out of the Middle East from barbarian primitives from the 7th century. That's what he wants to do.
Pause it for a second, because this is a what Mark Levin would call a target-rich environment. To the extent that there's a danger of nukes emanating out of the Middle East, that danger, at least for now, and perhaps even 5 years in the worst case scenario, is from Israel. Like literally in this program, moments before Mark Levin goes off on this, Sean Hannity was talking about Israel firing tactical nukes. Like Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. It has not had a program to build a nuclear weapon for over 20 years. Where has the threats from Iran come from on this country? Like what, aside from our occupying Iraq, where have there been any threats to this country or personnel from Iran? It's just absurd.
It's psychotic, but this has been their agenda, right? It was after Iraq, after it was supposed to be Afghanistan, it was supposed to be Iran.
President,
and it was,
please give us Obamacare. I'm going to make you like it, because that's what we radical left-wing ideologues do. Screw you, screw the Constitution, screw elections, balance of power, checks and balances, none of it matters. I've got my Obamacare, and you're stuck with it forever with our totalitarian mindset. That is what we do.
And now, when the shoe's on the other foot, suddenly, he's very much in favor of totalitarianism all of a sudden.
Iraq, and it was supposed to be Iran. That was their third step, right? Yep. And they never got to do it, in part because after Bush got reelected the second time, his approval rating started to crater, and the tide started to turn against the Iraq war. But they feel like they have an opportunity now, and you can see like these people crawling out of the woodwork, because this has been their long-held dream to invade Iran and to establish complete dominance over the Middle East.
Damn thing. And that's what needs to happen. That's not a warmonger. That's a peacemaker. That is a man who's going to make sure this generation and future generations are protected from nuclear missiles coming out of the Middle East from barbarian primitives from the 7th century. That's what he wants to do. And then I hear the question.
Barbarian primitives.
So the thing he says about the president since he says Carter, It's interesting because I kept talking about Richard Nixon in 1968 all of last year because it was the exact same thing where he ran on a secret plan to end the Vietnam War. He was going to be the peacemaker. And because the Democrats, until too late, didn't break with LBJ's policy on that. And so Nixon got to come in, well, oh, he's going to not only end war, but, settle things down law and order wise. Instead, he expanded the Vietnam War and started bombing Cambodia and Laos. And that's basically where we're at. We just repeated history right in front of our eyes.
Exactly. And Trump using, it's very, in fact, Kissinger or Nixonian in many ways, like using the 60-day negotiating window that he gave to the Iranians as a way to put down their defenses, because there was a sense that Israel could bomb them and put them into and bring them to heel, basically. Like Netanyahu has he humiliated Biden in so many different ways, just manipulating him, and Biden's mental acuity was at such a low level at that point that like it probably wasn't too hard. But the Trump stuff, he's also doing the same thing, because he's gotten him to buy into this, because Trump's so stupid he doesn't even understand this zero enrichment target to basically get Iran to agree not to even do civilian nuclear enrichment. And that's insanity. It's a poison pill. It's a non-starter.
And I mean, look, what we're watching from Israel right now is the biggest argument for every country to get a nuke.
Yeah.
I mean, this dynamic has been, well known for a long time. The Iranians don't want a nuke, but they also must know, and I would imagine there's a tremendous amount of domestic pressure. Like, how could you leave us so vulnerable to an attack by Israel here when only a nuke would be a deterrent to these lunatics? And that's the dynamic we have. They don't need 60% enrichment for civilian uses. They want, I believe they do want uranium enriched for civilian uses. But
there
I think
are civilian uses at 60%, mostly radionucleotide uses for medicine. So it's a legitimate enrichment level that has civilian use.
They also realize, like, unless we maintain some credible threat of being able to achieve a nuclear weapon, then we are sitting ducks. Yeah. And the fact that they have only enriched it to 60% as opposed to the 90% they need, despite the fact that they don't have what do you expect? You unilaterally ended the deal to have them not have a nuclear weapon. You have signaled time and time again. There are, people at the gates who want to attack you.
Dropped a missile on one of their leading military guys.
I mean, it's just...
And negotiators. They did exactly what they did with Hamas, where Israel, their decapitation strategy, where they assassinated one of Hamas's lead negotiators, and they did the peace negotiators. They just did the same, Hania, and they just did the same thing with Israel. I mean, with Iran, and it's interesting too, because you're seeing people in China, like kind of maybe Chinese partisans or whatever, people who are speaking about this, saying Iran should have basically purchase Chinese missile defense because they were a little hesitant to do so. But the market for Chinese arms is increasing, and I think Pakistan purchased from them recently too, in part because the United States' brute militarism and Israel acting as our proxy has created such an unstable world that even if Iran is not incentivized to get a nuclear weapon, they are certainly incentivized to purchase many arms in anticipation of this belligerent president and a completely genocidal, psychopathic, rogue state attacking them. So either way, this just makes the world less safe. But at least Mark Levin got to see some people in the Middle East, some brown people, blown apart, because that seems to be what he's fixated on there.
Maxi Maxi Leftist. I've been documenting the Trump family's crimes chronologically for 5 years. I've emailed you guys about my website, trumpfile.org, but got no response. I think we missed that. Sorry. And you never read my IMs when I send them under the username trumpfile.org. What gives? Left is best, and congrats, Emma. We'll miss you next week. I don't think people realize, like, how many IMs we get during a show. And it's completely random. Now,
Taco Trump
situation in Iran. I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today. The ongoing situation in Iran. I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding.
Like, if I'm Iran, I'm going into full-on enrichment mode, and I'm getting as much material together for a bomb as I can. And then I'm building a warhead, and I'm testing one. Mike, did you see Trump's new mobile phone marketing website and cellular plan? It's called the Trump phone. Should I buy it? No. People are gathering in front of Dodger Stadium demanding ICE out of LA. Lots of media here too. I can't believe the Dodgers are participating in this. If you've ever been in LA, a backwards Dodgers cap is like practically a uniform for the immigrant community. Like, what the fuck are they doing? All right, let's keep going.
There are times like I get into Jags, and for whatever reason, I get like I don't know. I land on certain IMs, and it's completely random. I don't know what else to say. Noel from San Francisco. I try and get the first one in more often than not. Haven't heard Sam this unsettled since the whole Peruse fiasco. I think I got Peruse wrong. It's the or is it cursory? Wait, what was the Peruse? Yes, yeah. And I think I used Peruse as like just passing through, sort of.
First of all, how dare you?
Wait. It doesn't mean to like peruse the aisles of the grocery store?
It's like nonplussed, where it's a word that sort of can mean both opposite things.
Okay.
Wait, nonplussed can mean both opposite things?
Nonplussed can mean you don't, notice something really at all, or it can mean you are completely taken aback and can't even respond to something.
And perused is that way?
I'm pretty sure. Well, at least that's what you're telling me now.
No, I'm not. I'm saying I got it wrong.
It's the first time hearing it.
Peruse is to look at something very
intensely.
But
I've never used
uses it and to mean the opposite of like I scanned it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's wrong.
Right. I know.
But colloquially, it's right.
What do you mean colloquially it's right?
It's like nonplussed, where like it's a word that had it.
No. Yeah. Nonplussed is also does not mean I don't care.
Look,
it's
you can be as Manichaean about nonplussed in these definitions as you want to be, but the truth.
Oh wait, by Manichaean, do you mean like? Do you mean sort of that it's binary, or do you mean that it could be like a polarized?
Yeah, exactly.
God, this is what happens when the power goes out. Teacher Dan, what do you think Charlie Kirk would say about what Jesus would say regarding its role towards fascism and all the religious right behind it?
Well,
nothing. I think he'd probably say nothing. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
Did you see the Knesset pass a law banning the filming of missiles and intercepts under threat of 20 months in prison? That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. And this is actually, this is a story I wanted to cover, chat, that actually really worries me. The leader of ICE is like sexually obsessed with AOC, and it's fucking weird. And it actually worries me. Like, legitimately, this does worry me. You'll see what I mean. It's actually concerning. Like, I don't like to use the word concerning because it's very lame. Because it's like, okay, concerning, and then what? And it's like, I don't know. But this country is already on the brink. Only democracy in the Middle East. You better not film the sky.
Have you ever been in that situation where, and maybe this happened to you like in junior high or something like that, maybe high school even, where you got a crush on somebody and they don't pay attention to you. And in fact, sometimes you hear them being critical of you and you're so angry. And then you can't find anybody to listen to you talk about this person. So you go to the biggest loser you know who will give you a platform. Well, that is Tom Homan going on Louder with Crowder to complain about AOC. This is such a weird...
like a months-old thing, she said.
He's really focused on this because he blames her for drawing attention to how illicit the ICE has been in this instance. And also, he blames her for letting people know what their rights are when they deal with ICE. Let's be clear. ICE, these people are not law enforcement. They're not. They are, they can deport people here, and it's a civil procedure. Unless you have been deported and returned, which apparently is a very small amount of people. But if you have entered this, and unless they can prove that you crossed the border illegally, as opposed to just not having documents, or as opposed to overstaying a visa, you have committed a civil infraction, functional equivalent of a speeding ticket. And they don't have authority to do anything other than to deport. So Homan's pissed about this because he's like the rest of his ICE force. They're all just sort of wannabe washouts from real law enforcement who were able, maybe they got a coupon from the Army Navy store and were able to buff up. That's basically what's going on. Now, if they bring somebody over from the FBI, which they do, they're even bringing over IRS enforcement to help them out. Maybe a different story, although in the capacity that they're operating, I'm not sure. But here is Homan showing up on Louder with Crowder. And Crowder, is it me or does it look like he's like done some work?
I don't know. It's been a while since I saw him, but he does look a little bit different.
He looks, honestly...
It's filler. They all have filler. They all have so much filler.
He looks like...
That's what it means to be a mighty manifesto.
That's
gender-affirming care.
He looks like he does in that... what was that guy? I can't remember the guy's name who did that animation of Crowder's Nightmare.
Oh, Eamon?
Eamon. He looks like Eamon's depiction of
By the
him.
way, chat, and appointed by Obama. We love our Obama appointees, don't we?
In animated, but go ahead.
Well, look, AOC, she's the least smart congressperson in the history of the United States Congress. And she just don't get it. I mean, bottom line is she's out there saying, she's hating on me every day, which I kind of dig it because I get to live in mine rent-free every day, and I kind of enjoy that. Yeah. But she's saying she's all...
I mean, this is a government official talking about this. First of all, she's the least smart...
As this guy bumbles.
Okay, Einstein.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's hard for me to keep up with,
Ben's over here.
The slurring of his words. But, I just want people to pay attention to the fixation on AOC. It is psychosexual. It is really, really, I think, dark, and they monetize this right-wing fixation with her that is about her appearance, and it's mixed in with this undertone of violence. So we used to talk about rape culture back before it was too woke, but this is the kind of thing that makes women feel unsafe to be around all these right-wing freaks, because they intermix their anger and their politics in with their, again, rampant misogyny. So that's what this is. And they do the same. Kamala's so dumb. AOC's so dumb.
Also, Kamala's sexual history they're fixated on.
That was her number one thing when she came into the... I remember when Andrew Schultz
Don't you know that male politicians are...
so chaste.
Yeah, pure as the driven snow.
Well, Andrew Schultz, the comedian, the right-wing comedian, was saying, well, back in the day, the Democrats were the ones who liked to fuck, like Bill Clinton.
Bit.
Yeah, he was the man. But now, and they were against the puritanical right. But now Trump's the one with all the baby mamas, and he's having sex, and there's never even this like recognition in their mind. You think Obama could have come on and been like, I have all these baby mamas and won the presidency because of his race, but even of the gender? If Kamala had been bragging about all of her body count, like just the...
They already called her a massive slut. Like, they already did that. That was like one of the most fucked up things that happened to Kamala Harris, but she is a genocidal warmonger, so I don't really care that people mistreated her. Am I a dick for saying that? I mean, I still think it's unacceptable to be sexist freak, but I honestly don't give a fuck about Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. Like, fuck them. Can we not talk about them ever again, please?
Underlying misogyny in the way that they speak about female politicians is so striking to me. But
and coming from a guy that it's like feels problematic to play him just expressing himself through language.
It is objective that he is not as articulate as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and there is no way you could argue otherwise.
I would also, I mean, aside from this, it's fascinating because I feel quite confident that she is in the top 3 percentile of intelligence of lawmakers.
Yep.
Congressperson in the history of the United States Congress, and she just don't get it. I mean, bottom line is she's out there saying, no, she's hating on me every day, which I kind of dig it because I get to live in mine rent free every day, and I kind of enjoy that. Yeah. But she's saying so she's in New York City, what she calls educating illegal aliens to their constitutional rights. You don't have to open the door for ICE. You don't have to answer questions, whatever. But we know what she's doing. We're not stupid. Yeah. She's educating illegal aliens on how to evade ICE arrest. That's what she's doing. And what you don't understand is
he hates that there's somebody out there saying that if ICE is knocking on your door, they need a signed warrant from a judge, not an administrative warrant, not an ICE warrant, a signed warrant from a judge. He hates it. He hates the fact that there's people out there questioning the authority of ICE agents to do. He hates the fact that he knows his ICE guys, if they go out, you've got people coming up and calling them scumbags because making them ashamed of themselves to the point where they actually have to wear masks.
And this kind of violence within border enforcement and ICE is nothing new. In 2019, ProPublica had this article where they found this old group with Customs and Border Patrol people where they were posting graphic images of Trump raping and sexually assaulting AOC. So I just want people to know how fascism and all of this stuff and state violence is intermixed with interpersonal violence and these feelings of empowerment that always come at the subjugation of another group. And the groups can transfer on an hourly basis about who they're going after.
I love life, living rent-free.
I feel like it. Just thinking about
Can you imagine this guy is in charge of a major...
Wait, are the Dodgers redeeming themselves? Federal agents denied entry into Dodger Stadium. Are the Dodgers redeeming themselves? Federal agents. Okay, I don't want to pay for the LA Times. Federal agents staging near Dodger Stadium denied entry to parking lot, sources say. Okay, let's go. Everyone get your Dodger hat back on. Okay, chat. I've been kind of really pissed off about this Brad Lander shit, and I want to talk about it a little bit more with you guys before we take off for the day. Listen to Brad Lander. So basically, Zohran defended the pro-Palestinian movement, globalized the Intifada chant, which Intifada means resistance or uprising or struggle, depends on what translation you're going with. And so he was asked about it on a neocon Never Trump podcast, that he said it's not anti-Semitic, it doesn't mean kill all the Jews. He stood for the truth and defended the pro-Palestine movement. And then Brad Lander, who had a moment because he was arrested by ICE for a day and is like kind of getting a little bit of attention on social media, and he cross-endorsed Zohran. So a lot of people like me, once he crossed endorsed Zohran, I complimented him a bunch, and I said, you know what? He's not so bad. He's pulling together. He's doing the opposite of Warren. Well, this morning, this is what he said. When Zohran is being attacked from all sides based on his defense of the pro-Palestine movement, what did Brad Lander do in his moment of vulnerability?
You know, when I hear the phrase globalize the Intifada, I say to people, I'm telling you, all I can hear right now is some Jews were killed in DC, and there was a flamethrower in Boulder. And maybe you don't mean to be saying it's open season on Jews everywhere in the world, but that's what I hear. And I'd like to hear that from other people as well. At the same time, you know, though I am a strong believer in the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, I hate what the war the Netanyahu government is conducting in Gaza. I have spoken up many times for a ceasefire, for aid getting in there, for an end to the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, for the human rights of Palestinians. And like, it's not the mayor of New York City's job, thank God, to try to achieve safety and, you know, mutual self-determination between Israelis and Palestinians, but it is the mayor's job to show up and say, we're going to bring people together. And yes, I believe Zohran Mamdani is serious about that, or I would not have cross-endorsed him.
No, I feel conflicted even about raising it because I see it as a kind of political cudgel. The job of mayor is not to set Middle East.
Now, chat, if you are stupid, I want to help you become not stupid. In politics, there are no accidents, okay? Somebody doesn't accidentally say, when you say that, I hear open season on Jews. That's not an accident. Pod Save America didn't ask it, didn't set it up. It's not an accident. It's an attempt to lend credibility to the attack on Zohran. And what they're hoping is that because Zohran is going to get knocked down from false accusations of anti-Semitism, that Brad Lander is going to surge ahead of him, and then Zohran's voters will be folded into him because of the cross endorsement. So he's stabbing Zohran in the back. You know, it's like a bull. In a bullfight, you hit him with some javelins, you stab him, you bleed him a bit so he's not so strong and fast, and then you dance around and stab him with the saber. It's a strategy to slow Zohran's momentum, to kick up a controversy, and to slander the pro-Palestinian movement. If this does not immediately make you realize that he's a scumbag and he's against us, then you are just not ready for politics like an adult. Now, if you want to talk about politics like a casual fan and a stan, then this will not affect you. But if you're someone who gets the game, you see exactly what Brad Lander is trying to do. He had this moment with ICE. He got a bunch of surge and gratitude on the left. And now, when Zohran's under attack by bad faith fucking Zionists, there he is pushing his two-state solution, liberal Zionist claptrap platitude that's not real in the middle of a Zionist genocide of the Palestinians, and he's trying to fucking throw dirt on Zohran. The answer is, do not rank this fucker. You only need to rank Zohran. The way ranked choice voting works is your other choices don't matter till your main choice is eliminated. Zohran is number 2 in every poll. You don't need to rank Brad Lander. Fuck him.
Policy. But then I also think if you're somebody that wants to see, whether it's you, Mamdani, a progressive win, like this is, you know, at a time when chaos in the Middle East is going to be salient in people's minds, especially a lot of Jewish voters. Like I worry that, hey, there's something about maybe beyond just the unfairness of the attack itself. Yep. What you said just made sense. There was something clear to me about what you just said.
I mean, I'll say one more sentence here. I mean, look, I have a real, these are, issues I've cared about passionately my whole life, and people can look my stuff up on them, and I hope people will rank me and be inspired by my point of view. But just once more on the debate, you had Zohran tried hard to speak to the concerns of Jewish New Yorkers. I do not agree with him on Israel and Palestine on every issue, and that's
We could get help from one of the groups in the liberal movement.
No. Don't trust the liberals. They will betray you.
Here's the thing. If that's what you hear, then you need to grow the fuck up. Absolutely. 100%. Infantile. Not only the frankly racist I hear Hitler in your resistance slogans, but also we're supposed to still respect the ludicrous idea of an Israel that's both Jewish and democratic. How about we act like adults who will be judged by history and place the blame for the domestic murders of both Palestinians and Zionists where it belongs? Israel's actions supported by our government. Thank you, Matt Leck. Don't endorse this scumbag. He's a fraud.
I mean, you're welcome. Say thank you, please. Obama pointing.
Yeah.
Illegal aliens on how to evade ICE arrest. That's what she's doing. And what you don't understand is ICE is prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats.
No.
Who she's educating? She's educating child rapists. She's educating people who've committed armed robberies and committed rape and committed sexual assault. That's what she's educating.
He knows this is not true. He knows this is not true.
No, it's like the Emmett Till style, sexual paranoia.
100%. And he's bringing up sex crimes. I know I'm a broken clock here, but it's just so incredible to me how you can see how upset he is and fixated.
Has there been a time in history where liberals did betray the left? I mean, there are, but I wouldn't. Actually, not liberals. Social Democrats. There have been times when social Democrats haven't. Liberals are just anti-left. That's what liberal is.
He is on this. And
incidentally, ICE also, I mean, or at least the immigration policy of the Trump administration no longer considers rape and domestic abuse as a legitimate reason to seek asylum in this country.
Yeah, right.
And if you arrest people at courthouses, guess who's not showing up to press charges or to go to court dates? Victims of crimes who may be immigrants. Like, he doesn't care about this whatsoever.
No, he's using AOC as a hate object, like Emma says, because Greg Casar, leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, doing the exact same stuff, as I'm sure many other representatives are. But Tom Homan is too afraid to go at somebody like Greg Casar because he doesn't have that element of, we can titillate these men with how they hate women and because she's attractive. And instead, I'm going to have to talk to another man who they might respect more than my, I don't know what that cartoon character was, but that's what he reminds me of. I'll look it up.
Right. And I meant to say a broken record, but like, this is also when they talk about protecting from criminals and child rapists, you are deploying plainclothes officers with masks on, not even officers, Gestapo, whatever the hell these ICE freaks are, going into schools. Like, we don't probably.
There's a lot of those elementary school kids who going around with they
grow up to be rapists.
They could, and they're taking lunch money.
They are like giving. This administration says the next 3.5 years. Basically, we are creating a built-in excuse for kidnapping, child rape, molestation, any kind of grabbing people off the street. Again, just to return to a bit of a feminist point, I think any woman that sees the way that these ICE plainclothes people come in unannounced, don't have a warrant, don't show an ID, and take somebody away, has that inherent feeling oh my God, this could be an opportunity that I could be raped or sexually assaulted. This also is the same thing for children. And this is the administration policy. There's no oversight. It's completely lawless. And we have the Democratic leadership not even wanting to criticize the agency because they haven't dipped. Trump hasn't gone -20 yet without any leadership or messaging on their end on immigration. How do we know, say some guy in a mask comes into a school and takes your daughter away? How do you know that that's an ICE agent or the predator who's going to kill her or assault her?
Those Minnesota reps were assassinated by a guy doing exactly that.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
All right, everybody. I appreciate all of you. I got to dip out a little bit early today because Theo's got some stuff she's got to take care of. So I'm going to send you guys, gals. Thank you for all the support. Appreciate you. Let me, who do I want to send you to? You know who we haven't gone to in a minute? Yagopnik. Also, I owe him one because we were supposed to do this shit on Sunday and then I had another event and then they were like, oh no, you were supposed to stream. And I was like, what? I thought we were making a podcast. So I owe him one. So everybody go say hi to Yagopnik. Apologize for me for the confusion. And I appreciate all of you. Stay safe out there. Solidarity forever, my friends. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and peace out.